Chapter 4476. Shen Yanqing had always been used to everything going smoothly. This guy had never been defeated, until he was defeated by Lin Feng. Therefore, Shen Yanqing was extremely angry now. He couldn't wait to cut Lin Feng into pieces. The humiliation that Lin Feng brought to him today almost made him go crazy. Kid, I admit that I underestimated you before. Your strength is beyond my expectations, but today you will still die. Soon you will know how terrifying I am. At that time, I will let you die in endless despair. Shen Yanqing looked at Lin Feng with hatred. Then, waves of sacred light gushed out from between his eyebrows. The sacred light that gushed out from between his eyebrows was very powerful. The sacred light seemed to contain the power to destroy the world. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He had a strange feeling. The sacred light from between Shen Yanqing's eyebrows was not his power. Buzz. Suddenly, the sacred light sprinkled down, and a cultivator appeared in the sacred light. It was an old man wearing sacred armor. The old man's body emitted an aura that made people unable to help but feel suffocated. That old man, powerful, mysterious, immortal, high and mighty, like a god. Sacred Heavenly King. It's the Sacred Heavenly King. When they saw the old man, many people couldn't help but exclaim. That old man, it was actually the Sacred Heavenly King. The high and mighty Sacred Heavenly King. The Sacred Heavenly King, one of the 18 heavenly kings under the Heavenly Emperor. No one would have thought that a shadow of the Sacred Heavenly King would appear between Shen Yanqing's eyebrows. It's the origin chi. This is the origin chi of the Sacred Heavenly King sealed between Shen Yanqing's eyebrows. If Shen Yanqing is in danger, he can use this origin chi to fight the enemy. When Divine Flame Sacred uses this origin source energy, his combat strength will greatly increase. After seeing the Sacred Heavenly King's shadow, an old man said in a deep voice. Obviously, this old man had some understanding of Shen Yanqing's means. The Sacred Heavenly King's shadow was formed by the origin chi. Therefore, the Sacred Heavenly King's shadow contained part of the Sacred Heavenly King's power. Even if it was just an origin chi, it was no small matter. After all, this was the source energy of a true immortal expert. It was easy to imagine how powerful the origin energy of an expert of this level was. The Divine Heavenly King's phantom and Divine Flame Saint instantly merged into one. Next, waves of terrifying ripples surged out of God Yanqing's body. No one would believe that it was coming from God Flame Saint's body after sensing that wave of energy. It was simply too powerful. It was unbelievable. It was as if an ancient expert had awakened from a deep slumber. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Then he looked at God Flame Saint with a serious expression. Divine Flame Saint has received a strand of Divine Heavenly King's origin energy. His battle prowess has already reached the peak. Although that boy is extremely strong, I'm afraid he's no match for Divine Flame Saint now. Yeah, it's too difficult to defeat the current Divine Flame Saint. I can't imagine how powerful he is now. The grudge between that brat and Divine Flame Saint runs too deep, so Divine Flame Saint will never let him go. Many cultivators couldn't help but start discussing. Clearly, these cultivators had seen Divine Flame Saint's technique. Their confidence in Lin Feng instantly collapsed. Divine Flame Saint was already powerful enough, and now he had received the support of Divine Heavenly King's origin energy. Divine Flame Saint's strength. It had already reached an appalling level. Therefore, those cultivators, they no longer had high hopes for Lin Feng. I think that Brat might have some heaven-defying techniques. Maybe he won't lose to Divine Flame Saint. That's right. I think so too. That brat is very heaven-defying. Don't underestimate him. There were also some cultivators who were more confident in Lin Feng. It didn't matter if they were confident in Lin Feng or those who weren't optimistic about Lin Feng. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the arena. The pinnacle battle was about to begin. Brat, do you know how you're going to die later? Divine Flame Saint looked coldly at Lin Feng. His eyes flickered with endless killing intent. His fist was surrounded by boundless, holy light. Obviously, Divine Flame Saint was preparing a powerful attack. Divine Flame Saint, who had received the support of Divine Heavenly King's origin energy, was extremely confident in his battle strength. He believed that he could kill Lin Feng. It would be as easy as blowing off dust. Trash. Even if you receive the support of external forces, you're still trash. How can an ant compete with a giant dragon? Lin Feng replied indifferently. His words were said casually, but in the eyes of many people, Lin Feng was revealing his domineering aura. Who would dare to say such words to Divine Flame Saint at this time? Lin Feng dared to say such words. Those who were watching the battle all felt their blood boiling. Lin Feng's words. It seemed to have ignited the hot blood in their bodies. Take my punch. Divine Flame Saint's expression was cold as he punched towards Lin Feng across the void. An energy fist condensed from holy light. It quickly blasted towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng moved horizontally to the left. He dodged the punch that was hurtling towards him. Then Lin Feng walked towards Divine Flame Saint step by step. Divine Flame Saint's eyes turned cold. He punched towards Lin Feng, one after another. Every punch. They all contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. A dense number of fist shadows condensed and formed. In a flash, he arrived in front of Lin Feng. But Lin Feng dodged all the punches that were coming towards him. This guy is really powerful. Su Yihan couldn't help but exclaim. She discovered, the more she understood Lin Feng, the more she discovered, the more terrifying Lin Feng was. Lin Feng's body seemed to be shrouded in a mysterious veil. It made people involuntarily feel. They wanted to unveil this mysterious veil. Then they wanted to see what kind of person Lin Feng was. Crossing the primitive world, shattering the world, seeing Lin Feng getting closer and closer to him, Divine Flame Saint felt a trace of dangerous aura. His face became gloomier. Therefore, Divine Flame Saint no longer held back and directly used his most powerful attack. After the divine ability was used, a primordial aura spread out between the heavens and the earth. Boundless desolation energy permeated the space between heaven and earth. Amidst the boundless primitive force, Yi Zichen was shocked. An earth-shaking sound of crushing the heavens was heard. Kill! Then the roar resounded through the sky. The sound of war drums, followed by the sound. It was a densely packed army. They quickly rushed over from afar. Hundreds of millions of troops. It was as if they had crossed the primitive era. The void of the undying realm was so strong. But at this moment, in the void of the undying realm, under the suppression of hundreds of millions of troops, countless cracks appeared. Chapter 4477. What a powerful ability. Divine Flame Saint has the support of Divine Heavenly King's origin energy. With this powerful ability, he's practically invincible. I'm afraid that Brat will be defeated by Divine Flame Saint. Maybe he'll be killed on the spot. One cultivator after another exclaimed, feeling the terror of Xin Yanqing's attack. On the faces of those cultivators, their faces turned pale with fright. Divine Flame Saint's attack was indeed terrifying. Therefore, at this moment, the cultivators who didn't think highly of Lin Feng were even more pessimistic about Lin Feng. As for the cultivators who had originally thought highly of Lin Feng, they were shocked. His expression also became serious. Divine Flame Saint's attack was terrifying. This caused those cultivators to lose their confidence in Lin Feng. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. He looked at God Flame Saint in surprise. The divine ability that this fella used was truly powerful. Of course, the strength of the divine ability was one thing, but the most important thing was that the divine Heavenly King's origin energy was too strong. Divine Heavenly King's origin energy greatly boosted Divine Flame Saint's attack. Therefore, Divine Flame Saint's attack was indeed terrifying. However, Lin Feng wasn't afraid at all. He walked forward in the void. Next, Lin Feng began to chant an incantation. "O mighty Tao of fate, please descend with the power of fate, and let those elemental spirits that have long since passed away return to silence." It was Lin Feng's voice. It resounded between heaven and earth. As soon as his voice fell, a river of fate appeared in the void. The river of fate swept through the world. It shook the void. The river of fate directly enveloped the densely packed army that was crushing down on them. The power of fate descended. The power of fate surged into the bodies of these cultivators. When the power of fate entered the bodies of those cultivators, the cultivators' bodies began to fade away. The cultivator army itself was an illusory form. They were formed from divine abilities. It wasn't real. The power of fate returned them to nothingness. Not good. Seeing this, Shen Yanqing's expression changed drastically. He originally wanted to use this powerful divine ability to defeat Lin Feng in one fell swoop, but he didn't expect Lin Feng's divine ability to restrain his divine ability. Looking at the densely packed army, their bodies seemed to have completely dissipated. Divine Flame Saint wasn't willing to give up just like that. Powerful Dharma power poured out endlessly to strengthen this technique. The illusory image of the army seemed to have solidified. However, the illusory army was destined to be unable to resist Lin Feng's Tao of fate. When the army arrived in front of Lin Feng was stunned. The illusory image of the army dissipated. Seeing this scene, the corner of Divine Flame Saint's mouth twitched violently. He didn't want to believe what he saw. He couldn't accept what he saw. The peerless divine ability that was enhanced by the divine Heavenly King's origin energy was actually broken by Lin Feng. This was a huge blow to the arrogant Divine Flame Saint. Heavens! Is he already so powerful? The cultivators watching the battle exclaimed. It was no wonder that they were so shocked. Divine Flame Saint's attack was indeed too powerful. However, such a powerful attack wasn't even able to exert any of its power. Lin Feng had already broken it. No matter who it was, they would find it unbelievable. Lin Feng took advantage of this opportunity to rush toward Divine Flame Saint, traverse the wilderness, shatter the world. At this moment, Lin Feng also used a divine ability. The divine ability he'd used was the same one Divine Flame Saint had used before. Lin Feng had used the 72 transformations divine ability. He had deduced the method to use Divine Flame Saint's divine ability. Lin Feng's 72 transformations was heaven-defying. It was the inheritance of the great sage, heaven's equal. This divine ability could deduce all divine abilities. Therefore, in theory, any divine ability that Lin Feng saw, he could deduce it with the 72 transformations. Now, an endless army had gathered around Lin Feng. The army had traversed the wilderness, shatter the world. It was a scene of apocalypse. When they saw this, everyone was dumbfounded. Lin Feng had actually used Divine Flame Saint's divine ability. This puzzled everyone. They didn't know how Lin Feng had done it. Isn't this guy too powerful? Su Yihan couldn't help but exclaim. The female cultivators around her nodded in agreement. Lin Feng was indeed too powerful. The beautiful eyes of many female cultivators revealed extraordinary splendor. Since ancient times, beauties loved heroes. Lin Feng was so domineering. He was so powerful at such a young age. In addition, Lin Feng was extraordinarily handsome. It was only natural that countless women secretly admired him. Some female cultivators even wondered if they could ask senior sister Mu Yasi to introduce them to him. Maybe she would be able to marry Lin Feng? In truth, Mu Yasi was also very shocked at this moment. 72 transformations. The great sage, heavens equals divine ability. Mu Yasi took a deep breath. This woman was indeed extraordinary. She recognized Lin Feng's divine ability at a glance. Lin Feng led an endless army and sent divine flame saint flying. Barf, divine flame saint spat out another mouthful of blood. Furthermore, the sound of bones cracking could be heard from his body. Who knew how many of his bones were broken? Seeing divine flame saint in such a miserable state, many people felt satisfied. Divine flame saint, this guy, he would die 1,000 times. 10,000 times. It was hard to relieve the hatred in their hearts. Divine Flame Saint, you're really too weak. Today, I'll kill you first. Then, I'll find a chance to kill your father. Shunzong Tian. Lin Feng sneered. Brat, you think too highly of yourself. Divine Flame Saint said coldly. He was so angry that he was about to go crazy. Now that he had suffered such serious injuries, it was simply the greatest humiliation in his life. Celestial bloodline. In the face of Lin Feng and his endless army, Divine Flame Saint shouted. Divine Flame Saint roared. Divine Flame Saint was a celestial cultivator. His celestial bloodline might not be comparable to that of the Celestial Emperor's bloodline, but that was only in relative terms. In fact, Divine Flame Saint's celestial bloodline was very powerful. In order to fight Lin Feng, Divine Flame Saint used his celestial bloodline. Divine Flame Saint's celestial bloodline was awakened. Celestial Holy Empire. Then, Divine Flame Saint roared. An ancient kingdom appeared behind Divine Flame Saint. That kingdom was the celestial race's ideal Holy Empire. Mysterious, ancient, powerful, and immortal. Billions of troops charged over. They were instantly devoured by Divine Flame Saint's celestial Holy Empire. Then, Divine Flame Saint summoned his celestial Holy Empire. Loud, rumbling sounds could be heard. The celestial Holy Empire crushed the void and suppressed Lin Feng. Chapter 4478. The Celestial Saint Empire was very terrifying. Previously, it had buried an endless army. Now, it wanted to bury Lin Feng. Celestial Bloodline. Divine Flame Saint has activated his celestial bloodline. His celestial bloodline is extremely powerful. Now that he has activated his celestial bloodline, will that kid still be his match? Immediately, some cultivators cried out in alarm. The celestial bloodline was one of the most powerful bloodlines in the world. In fact, from the beginning of the era until now, all the major bloodlines had declined greatly. However, the celestial bloodline was one of the few bloodlines that had not declined much. Perhaps it was because of this that the celestial race was so prosperous now. The power of the celestial bloodline. It was absolutely shocking. In the undying realm, there were not many celestial race members. The celestial race members in the undying realm had a very respected status. For example, the celestial emperor's bloodline. For example, the divine heavenly king's bloodline. Their statuses were all high and mighty. They looked down on everyone. Usually, very few people could force them to use their celestial bloodline. However, under Lin Feng's continuous attacks, Divine Flame Saint had no choice but to activate his celestial bloodline. Divine Flame Saint's celestial bloodline was extremely powerful. Otherwise, he would not have condensed the Celestial Saint Empire. Many people looked at the Celestial Saint Empire with reverence in their eyes. It was as if they were ordinary people in the mortal world. They were as fearful as the nobles when they saw the imperial family. No one knew if Lin Feng could contend against Divine Flame Saint's celestial bloodline. Now, no one dared to comment on this matter anymore. This was because Lin Feng was too extraordinary. No matter what Lin Feng did, everyone felt that it was a matter of course. Therefore, even if Lin Feng could break Divine Flame Saint's celestial bloodline now, no one would have any doubts. Celestial bloodline. What a great celestial bloodline. But then again, celestial bloodline was not considered a particularly powerful bloodline in the human race back then. In the face of the Celestial Holy Empire's attack, Lin Feng still had a calm expression. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Shen Yanxing sneered and said, "Boy, you think too highly of yourself. The Deva bloodline is the most powerful bloodline in the world. As a human cultivator, your bloodline is destined to be suppressed by mine." Shen Yanxing looked at Lin Feng indifferently. Clearly, he was extremely confident in his Deva bloodline. The others also agreed with Divine Flame Saint's words. Because celestial bloodline, it was indeed one of the most powerful bloodlines of the human race. Lin Feng said, in the era of the Xiantian human clan, there were many human bloodlines that surpassed the celestial being bloodline. But as time passed, most of these bloodlines died out. Have you heard of this saying? It's called choosing the general from the dwarves. It's not because of how powerful the Deva bloodline is. It's because after the Xiantian human bloodline died out, the seemingly ordinary Deva bloodline stood out among the many ordinary bloodlines. Lin Feng's words belittled the Deva bloodline as if it was nothing. This infuriated Shen Yanxing greatly. He sneered and said, "Boy, you're about to die, yet you still dare to boast shamelessly." As soon as he finished speaking, the Celestial Holy Empire descended from the sky. From afar, it looked like Lin Feng was about to be suppressed by the Celestial Holy Empire. At that moment, Lin Feng's cold laughter suddenly rang out. "The ignorant are fearless. Today, I'll let you know how powerful I am." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng began to circulate his sovereign blood. Buzz. The blade of God vibrated with terrifying fluctuations. Then it flew out of Lin Feng's dantian. The power contained within the blade of God was so great that it was shocking. Between heaven and earth, there was an ancient killing weapon, which was also the blade of God. And the blade of God that Lin Feng condensed was an ability that was awakened when the sovereign blood was awakened. So Lin Feng had always felt that the blade of God was an ancient killing weapon. Did it have a deep relationship with the sovereign imperial clan? Of course, whether it was what he guessed or not, this matter needed to be confirmed in the future. At this moment, the blade of God had already flown to the side of the Celestial Holy Empire. Then, the blade of God, it slashed towards the Celestial Holy Empire. Everyone saw Lin Feng's blade of God. It actually tore apart the Celestial Holy Empire. Many people's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. The Celestial Holy Empire was a supernatural power condensed from the Deva bloodline. Now, it was actually unable to resist Lin Feng's attack. Lin Feng's attack was too powerful, wasn't it? It was really unbelievable. Everyone had a doubt in their hearts. How did Lin Feng cultivate? Even if he started cultivating when he was in his mother's womb, he would not be able to cultivate to such a heaven-defying fighting strength, right? But Lin Feng actually possessed such fighting strength, causing everyone to feel extremely shocked in their hearts. After the blade of God destroyed the celestial Holy Empire. It quickly slashed towards God Flame Saint. "No, this is impossible," God Flame Saint roared hysterically. His Deva bloodline awakened. The attack that he unleashed, it was actually broken by Lin Feng. This was too big of a blow to God Flame Saint. God Flame Saint, he simply could not accept such a blow. "I'm afraid, God Flame Saint is finished." Many people's faces revealed a smile. The Sacred Army had destroyed many families and forces in the Sin domain. They even suspected that the other party was related to the sinner's blood descendants. They would slaughter the other party's entire family. The Sacred Army's reputation had long been completely ruined, but the Sacred Army was too powerful. So, even though everyone was extremely dissatisfied with the Sacred Army, they did not dare to say anything, now that they saw that Lin Feng was very likely to kill God Flame Saint, a Sin domain cultivator. Naturally, they were extremely excited. The blade of God instantly arrived in front of God Flame Saint and slashed towards him. God Flame Saint took out a shield. He held the shield in his left hand to block the blade of God's attack. Clang! The blade of God ruthlessly slammed into the shield in God Flame Saint's hand. Suddenly, the sound of metal colliding could be heard. God Flame Saint's shield actually blocked the blade of God's attack. Before he could even let out a sigh of relief, he felt a chill in his heart. He wanted to move horizontally, but it was already too late. Lin Feng silently appeared behind God Flame Saint. God Flame Saint did not have time to block Lin Feng's punch, and was sent flying by Lin Feng. He spat out mouthfuls of blood in midair. His bones were broken, and his magic power was scattered by Lin Feng's punch. Die! Lin Feng's expression was indifferent as he sent a palm strike towards God Flame Saint. "Kid, how dare you?" At this moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out between heaven and earth. Then, an old man stepped out of the void and sent a palm strike towards Lin Feng. After sensing the old man's aura, many people could not help but turn pale with fright. This old man, he was actually an Earth Immortal expert. Chapter 4479. An Earth Immortal Realm expert was so powerful that Lin Feng had to take him seriously. If he wasn't careful, he might die at the hands of an Earth Immortal Realm expert. The Earth Immortal Realm expert in front of him was most likely Divine Flame Saint's protector. A protector was a bodyguard sent by the upper echelons of the family to protect important figures. Generally speaking, no one was qualified to intervene in such a battle of life and death in the arena. But obviously, the protector wouldn't sit by and watch Divine Flame Saint die at the hands of Lin Feng. Therefore, the Earth Immortal Realm expert attacked. His attack was very terrifying, but Lin Feng didn't plan to fight him head-on. When the Earth Immortal Realm expert attacked, Lin Feng used the teleportation magic. Swoosh! With a flash of light, Lin Feng disappeared. When Lin Feng reappeared, he was already beside Divine Flame Saint. Lin Feng waved his right hand, and a sword chi slashed toward Divine Flame Saint's head. "No!" Divine Flame Saint screamed in horror. But no one could save Divine Flame Saint. No one could stop Lin Feng from killing Divine Flame Saint. The Sacred Army slaughtered the descendants of the sinner's blood. Lin Feng had a strong killing intent toward the Sacred Army. How could he let go of an executioner like Divine Flame Saint? If he wanted to destroy the Sacred Army, he should start with Divine Flame Saint. Puff! With a tearing sound, everyone saw a head fly into the sky. It was Divine Flame Saint's head. Lin Feng's sword chi was so powerful that it didn't just cut off Divine Flame Saint's head. It also destroyed all of Divine Flame Saint's life force. So when Divine Flame Saint's head flew into the sky, all of Divine Flame Saint's life force was cut off. Blood spurted out from his neck. Countless people widened their eyes as they watched this scene in shock. Divine Flame! Saint was really killed. He was the grandson of the sacred heavenly king and was doted on by the sacred heavenly king. That was why Divine Flame Saint had a protector by his side. However, right now, even the protector hadn't been able to save Divine Flame Saint. The scene in front of him, it was indeed too shocking. However, this made countless people extremely excited. That grandson of Divine Flame Saint, he was finally dead. It was good that he died. It was great that he died. But then, everyone began to worry about Lin Feng. Everyone naturally hoped that Lin Feng would be fine. But Lin Feng killed Divine Flame Saint, the army of the Sacred Legion, and that Earth Immortal level expert would not let Lin Feng go, would they? How could he escape? Could it be that he was going to die here? At that moment, the Earth Immortal cultivator pointed at Lin Feng. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. As the Tao protector of Divine Flame Saint, he couldn't absolve himself from the blame for Divine Flame Saint's death. Little bastard, no one in this world can save you. The earthly immortal realm expert roared furiously. A dense killing intent burst out from his eyes. Woo! At the same time, the sound of a bugle horn resounded through heaven and earth. Then, a dense army of the Sacred Legion surrounded Lin Feng from all directions. Lin Feng stood on top of the arena, facing thousands of soldiers and horses. He was still as calm as a mountain. Such a bearing. It was extremely admirable. Capture him alive. I will personally deliver this little bastard to the divine, heavenly king, and let him deal with him. The Earth Immortal expert's voice was filled with resentment. Kill, after receiving the order. The Sacred Legion's army of cultivators all rushed toward Lin Feng. The enemy's army of cultivators has been mobilized, and there's even an Earth Immortal expert. I'm afraid that kid is in danger. Seeing this, a cultivator immediately said, in the eyes of countless people, at this moment, Lin Feng was indeed in danger. After all, the Sacred Legion's forces were just too powerful, and everyone knew the Sacred Legion would definitely spare no expense. Capture Lin Feng, because if the Sacred Legion's cultivators did not capture Lin Feng, they would not be able to explain it to their superiors. Relying on the Sacred Legion's cruel rules when the time came, they would most likely be severely punished. So, now, in order to capture Lin Feng, these people used all their means without holding back. Come out! Facing the siege of the army, Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. With a wave of his hand, 2 large insect swarms were immediately released by Lin Feng. Ancient Demon Refining Insect Swarm. Celestial Devouring Insect Swarm. Blotting out the sky and covering the earth, they flew toward the surrounding cultivators. A large number of insects instantly drowned those cultivators. Incomparably shrill screams were heard. Many cultivators did not even have time to react before they were bitten to death by the insects. Then, those cultivators began to hurriedly cast defensive light shields or took out powerful magic treasures to resist the insect swarm's attack. At this moment, the Sacred Legion's army stationed in other positions was quickly rushing over. Lin Feng knew, with his own strength, he wanted to contend against the Sacred Legion's army that had an Earth Immortal level expert. It was simply unrealistic. Therefore, Lin Feng did not plan to continue staying here. Lin Feng had almost inquired about the information that he wanted to know. It was time to leave Divine Monarch City. Sacred Heavenly King should be killed. Now, this young master will first kill Divine Flame Saint. Not long after, I will definitely cut off the Sacred Heavenly King's dog head. Lin Feng could not help but laugh. Under the cover of the endless insect swarm, Lin Feng quickly flew in the direction of the city gate. As the Sacred Legion's army had not yet arrived, only a portion of the Sacred Legion's cultivators stationed in the city tower had arrived. Therefore, this portion of people could not stop Lin Feng at all. The Earth Immortal level expert wanted to capture Lin Feng, but the insect swarm was too terrifying. In addition, Lin Feng had taken out 5 stone swords. The 5 stone swords were hidden in the insect swarm. Whenever the Earth Immortal level expert attacked, Lin Feng would immediately activate the stone swords to deal with him. The Earth Immortal level expert was almost killed by Lin Feng's stone swords. Therefore, he did not dare to continue forward. Activate the array, completely trap him, the Earth Immortal level expert shouted loudly. The Sacred Legion's Spirit Array Master completely activated the Divine Monarch City's array. The Divine Monarch City's array formed a huge light shield. It completely enveloped the entire Divine Monarch City within. The people outside could not come in. The people inside could not come out either. Ha 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 ha. Kid, you are now a turtle in a jar. Do you think you can still escape? Today, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Seeing Lin Feng trapped in the Divine Monarch City by the array, the Earth Immortal level expert suddenly laughed out loud. In his opinion, the current Lin Feng was already a trapped beast. He wanted to play Lin Feng to death, so he could play Lin Feng to death. Chapter 4480. Not good. The Divine Sovereign City has been sealed off. That kid is trapped inside the city. I'm afraid he's finished this time. Yeah, now that he's trapped in the Divine Sovereign City, when the Sacred Army stationed in all directions arrives, how powerful will the Sacred Army be? Even if this kid has 2 kinds of powerful insect swarms, I'm afraid he'll still be dead by then. To be honest, this kid is a heaven-defying genius. It's really a pity to die in the hands of these people. Countless people started to discuss, and many people even began to feel sorry for Lin Feng, because they felt that Lin Feng would definitely not be able to escape death. After seeing the trapped Lin Feng, Su Yihan didn't know why, but she unexpectedly said, "Senior sister, is that guy really unable to escape? Should we help him?" Mu Yasi said, "Don't worry, I think he still has a way. This person, he's really unfathomable." Hearing senior sister Mu Yasi say that Lin Feng might still have a way. Although she was quite worried about Lin Feng, Su Yihan could only calm her heart and continue to wait. She looked into the distance and saw Lin Feng directly rushing towards the Divine Sovereign City's defensive light shield. Su Yihan frowned slightly. Why did Lin Feng rush towards the defensive light shield? The most important thing to do now was to quickly enter the Divine Sovereign City and hide before the Sacred Army's army closed in. After all, the Divine Sovereign City was so huge. Hiding might temporarily avoid the other party's search. But obviously, Lin Feng didn't seem to think so. In Su Yihan's view, Lin Feng rushing towards the defensive light shield, wasn't this courting death? Why did he do this? Su Yihan couldn't figure it out. But the next moment, Su Yihan's beautiful eyes widened, because when Lin Feng arrived in front of the defensive light shield, he actually easily tore apart the defensive light shield. Such means were really extraordinary. It made Su Yihan's heart filled with deep shock. What kind of powerful array level was this? To be able to destroy the defensive light shield so easily? Think about it. It gave people a feeling of disbelief. But Lin Feng did it. Not to mention, he did it in front of so many cultivators. Lin Feng rushed out of the crack in the array. Damn it! Damn it! Hurry up and chase. We can't let that brat escape. The earthly immortal expert roared in exasperation when he saw this scene. He couldn't accept what he saw. Lin Feng actually wanted to escape. Something like this must never happen. Or else, how was he going to explain this to the higher-ups? the earthly immortal realm expert, led his army out of the divine monarch city and chased after Lin Feng. But obviously, Lin Feng had long since disappeared without a trace. What happened in divine monarch city could not be concealed at all. The news spread like wildfire, especially the death of divine flame saint, which caused a huge uproar in Sin domain. The sacred army guarded the Sin domain, which cultivator in Sin domain was not afraid of the sacred army. The sacred army was definitely a force that no one dared to provoke in Sin domain. But now, there was actually a grandson who killed the sacred heavenly king, the young master of the sacred army. Was this a challenge to the sacred army? Was this a slap to the sacred heavenly king's face? And it was said that the person who killed divine flame saint was a young human cultivator. This matter made people's imagination run wild. At this moment, in Sin domain, ancient cities, there were many ordinary cities, even the cultivators in small towns. They were all talking about this matter. Who do you think killed divine flame saint? He even said that he would kill the sacred heavenly king in the future. He's really bold. Yeah, I've never seen such a bold person, but this person's strength is really strong. Back then, he tore apart the divine monarch city's defensive light shield and left. Such means were really shocking. If he was given time, he might really be able to kill the sacred heavenly king. Don't joke around. The sacred heavenly king is a true immortal. No matter how strong that kid is, he can't be the sacred heavenly king's opponent. Didn't you say to give him time? Youth is capital. Who can say for sure what will happen in the future? That's true. Do you think that the kid who killed divine flame saint also has the sinner's bloodline? Ah, sinner's bloodline. Is that possible? Of course. First of all, did that kid need to kill divine flame saint? That would completely offend the sacred army. Second, he said that he would kill the sacred heavenly king in the future. This means that there's a grudge between him and the sacred heavenly king or the sacred army. Finally, he's a human cultivator, and he's so heaven-defying that even divine flame saint wasn't his match. Divine flame saint is a celestial cultivator with a powerful bloodline. I heard that during the war, that kid was extremely disdainful of the celestial bloodline, and even said that the celestial bloodline was only an ordinary one among the innate human bloodlines. As a human cultivator, he killed divine flame saint despite being weaker than him. This means that his bloodline is definitely stronger than divine flame saints. Most of the ancient human bloodlines during the innate human era have fallen silent, but that doesn't mean that all of them have fallen silent. There are still some that haven't fallen silent, but those are all labeled as sinners' bloodlines. That's why I think that kid might be a sinner's bloodline possessor. In various places, all sorts of discussions could be heard. There were also many cultivators guessing Lin Feng's origins. After some analysis, some concluded that Lin Feng was a descendant of the sinner's bloodline. It had to be said, in this world, there were indeed some extremely intelligent people. Lin Feng's identity, the other party had guessed correctly. Not long after, an arrest warrant was issued. Sin Realm had placed a bounty on Lin Feng. However, the Sacred Army was unable to draw a portrait of Lin Feng because Lin Feng's luck was too strong. Anyone who drew a portrait of Lin Feng, that portrait would instantly combust, and then it would turn into ashes. Thus, Lin Feng's arrest warrant. They could only use words to describe Lin Feng's appearance. But to describe his appearance with words, it was obviously not as vivid as a portrait. It was also very difficult for people to distinguish Lin Feng. Other than Lin Feng, Wu Tianhai was also wanted by the Sacred Army. There was a portrait of Wu Tianhai, and it was extremely lifelike. It was extremely close to Wu Tianhai's appearance. What shocked everyone was the arrest warrant read, Lin Feng and Wu Tianhai were accomplices. Anyone who caught the two of them or provided clues about them would be heavily rewarded. The moment the arrest warrant was issued, it immediately caused another huge uproar. Wu Tianhai was the demon realm's sinner's blood. Lin Feng and Wu Tianhai were accomplices. Didn't that mean, could this already confirm the fact that Lin Feng was also a sinner's blood? The only difference between him and Wu Tianhai was Lin Feng was not the demon realm's sinner's blood, but the human race's sinner's blood. Chapter 44, 81. The Sin Domain was looking for Lin Feng. However, without a portrait of Lin Feng, it was not easy to find Lin Feng, just based on the description of his appearance. Even if they saw Lin Feng, they probably wouldn't be able to recognize who Lin Feng was. At this moment, Lin Feng was flying towards the northwest. According to the information he got from Su Yinran, there might be descendants of Emperor Shun in the northwest. He didn't know if he could find them. There were basically no big cities in the northwest. The real big cities were basically in the eastern and central regions of the Sin Domain. However, there were still many towns in the northwest. However, as he went deeper into the northwest, the weather gradually became colder. The northwest of the Sin Domain, the north, and the northeast were the legendary bitter cold lands, because that area was closer to the extreme north of the Undying Realm. The extreme north of the Undying Realm was covered by endless icebergs. The climate there was extremely cold, and it was a place that no one was willing to enter easily. That place was simply too dangerous. Although it was not a life forbidden zone, it was comparable to a life forbidden zone. As for the few places close to the extreme north, they were all barren lands. As he went deeper, even the small towns became fewer and fewer. Lin Feng went to many small towns and tried to find the whereabouts of the sinner's bloodline. However, he didn't find anything. It's snowing. The three-headed viper flew quickly above the mountain forest. Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the head of the three-headed viper. Heavy snow fell. Lin Feng didn't stop the snowflakes from falling on his body. In the north, it was cold, and the ground was frozen. He hadn't seen any small towns with cultivators for more than 10 days. 3 days later, Lin Feng finally saw a small town. There was a huge stone tablet next to the town. There were 2 words written on the stone tablet, Snow Town. This area was covered in snow all year round. It would snow for more than half of the year. That was how the town got its name. Snow Town was cold, but there were many cultivators. The Snow Lady has appeared. The Snow Lady has appeared. All of a sudden, someone shouted in the snowy town. Hearing that the Snow Lady had appeared, many cultivators moved out. He quickly flew into the forest. Lin Feng found a restaurant. Then, he ordered a table of dishes. In this cold weather, a pot of hot wine and a table full of delicious dishes was truly a great enjoyment in life. They're all going to die. Seeing many cultivators rushing towards Gulin, the old man sitting at the table beside Lin Feng shook his head. That old man was too old, and his body was a little stooped. His eyes were cloudy. There were 2 dishes on the table in front of him, a plate of fried peanuts. There was also a plate of green vegetables, but he wasn't sure if they were wild vegetables. Then there was a bottle of wine that looked rather inferior, but the old man drank it with relish. Lin Feng looked at the old man and said, "Senior, isn't it boring to drink alone? If you're interested, why don't you come to my place and have a taste of my fine wine?" When the old man heard Lin Feng's invitation, he stood up and said with a smile, "Thank you for your invitation, young friend. It would be impolite of me to refuse." Lin Feng poured a cup of wine for the old man. This was the best spirit wine, brewed with hundreds of expensive ingredients. It was not something that ordinary wine could compare to. Lin Feng poured a cup of wine for the old man. The old man took a sip and smacked his lips, looking like he was savoring the taste. This junior is Lin Feng. How should I address you, senior? Lin Feng asked. I don't deserve to be called senior. My name is Bai Lianshan, and I'm just a rogue cultivator who has accomplished nothing. The old man said. Lin Feng smiled and said, Senior, you're too modest. Senior, let's not just drink wine. Try these dishes and see if they're to your liking. Today, I'm basking in young friend's glory. The old man smiled and used his chopsticks to pick up a piece of flood dragon meat, eating it with relish. Lin Feng toasted the old man 3 times. The old man drank happily and started chatting with Lin Feng about everything. After some conversation, Lin Feng found out that the old man had lived in this town for a long time. Thus, he knew a lot of things about this town. Lin Feng asked the old man how long he had lived here. Lin Feng was unable to sense the old man's age. However, the old man only smiled and did not say anything. Senior, you said that those who went out to search for the snow ladies were sending themselves to their deaths. Could the snow ladies they were looking for be cultivators of the Snow Lady tribe? Lin Feng asked calmly. The Snow Lady tribe was a very mysterious tribe. Back when Lin Feng was in the Tianwu continent, he had some interactions with the Snow Lady tribe. It was rumored that there were no males in the Snow Lady tribe. The Snow Lady tribe was made up of all females. Moreover, the Snow Lady tribe members were all as beautiful as fairies. However, their temperaments were cold. Every Snow Lady would go out to train when they were 3,000 years old. After the training ended, they would return to the land of the Snow Lady tribe. After a period of time, they would head to the sacred mountain, drink the sacred water, and give birth to children. This was the way the Snow Lady tribe passed on their ancestral line. Lin Feng and the Snow Lady tribe's Qian Piaoxue had some interactions, and they had even developed some ambiguous feelings. However, this ambiguity did not last long. After that, Lin Feng never saw Qian Piaoxue again. He did not know how Qian Piaoxue was doing. The old man said, The Snow Lady mentioned here is not a member of the Snow Lady tribe. The Snow Lady mentioned here should be called a snow demon. Snow demon? Lin Feng looked at the old man in surprise. The old man nodded with a serious expression and said, The origin of the snow demon can be traced back to more than 10,000 years ago. At that time, many adventurers entered the depths of the forest to search for opportunities. It is said that someone saw a beautiful woman who would seduce men. However, all the men who were seduced by her were eventually eaten by her. That woman is the snow demon. The snow demon was not so powerful at the beginning, but as time passed, the snow demon devoured more and more people, and her cultivation also became stronger and stronger. However, that woman is indeed beautiful. In the past, I once saw her peerless appearance from afar. Perhaps it was because others did not want to associate such a beautiful woman with a demon, so the name of the Snow Lady gradually spread. So that's how it is, Lin Feng nodded and asked, Then where did the Snow Lady come from? Chapter 4482. Why are they searching for the Snow Lady? Lin Feng asked curiously. The Snow Lady was beautiful, but there were many beautiful women. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't think that so many people were searching for the Snow Lady because she was too beautiful. Powerful cultivators wanted to find beautiful women. Actually, it wasn't a difficult task. It's said that the Snow Lady controls the snow spirit bone fire. So those people want to kill her and steal her heavenly fire. The old man continued. Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but be surprised. Snow spirit bone fire? Lin Feng had heard of this before. Among the many heavenly fires, the snow spirit bone fire was ranked 30th. It was in the middle of the heavenly fires. The heavenly fire's value couldn't be judged by its ranking. Of course, relatively speaking, the higher the heavenly fire's ranking, the more powerful it was. However, the heavenly fire's abilities were different. For example, the purple earthcore fire. This heavenly fire was more harmful to the cultivator's soul. For example, the black flame god-devouring fire. This heavenly fire could devour the opponent to increase its own strength. As for the snow spirit bone fire, it was said that it could freeze heaven and earth. That's right. It could freeze heaven and earth. Don't think that all heavenly fires were of the hot attribute. Actually, this understanding was wrong. Among the heavenly fires, some were of the cold attribute. For example, the snow spirit bone fire was such a heavenly fire. Actually, Lin Feng had some information about other heavenly fires. For example, the extreme Yin Fiend fire, which was ranked 5th. However, Lin Feng couldn't find this heavenly fire for the time being. There was also the dragon snake flaming sun fire. It was ranked 22nd. Lin Feng couldn't find it for the time being. However, Lin Feng had clues about the dragon snake flaming sun fire and the extreme Yin Fiend fire. Lin Feng had already absorbed 5 types of celestial fire, so he wanted to absorb more celestial fire. He wondered how the Snow Lady was doing. However, according to the old man, the Snow Lady was extremely powerful. Those people couldn't deal with the Snow Lady at all. For now, he didn't have to worry about the snow spirit bone fire being stolen. Senior, you've lived here for so long. Have you heard anything about the descendants of Emperor Shun? Lin Feng asked the old man. The old man was shocked. Then he looked around. They realized that no one was paying attention to them. Only then did he let out a long sigh. The descendants of Emperor Shun are of the sinner's bloodline. Why are you asking about them? There are people from the Sacred Legion in this place. Be careful not to let them know. When the time comes, we'll be in big trouble. Lin Feng lowered his voice and said, I was just asking casually. Does Senior know about it? I heard that many years ago, Emperor Shun's descendants were found by the Sacred Legion, and then all of them were slaughtered. The old man whispered. What? Lin Feng's hand trembled slightly. Next, a dense killing intent appeared in his eyes. He is now. His anger was overflowing. His killing intent was monstrous. Don't get rid of the Sacred Legion. What a waste of human life. Little brother, the Sin Domain was not like any other place. In the Sin Domain, he had to keep a low profile. Only then can we live longer. The old man said meaningfully, I've always been a low-key person. Lin Feng said. The old man smiled. Then they began to drink again. The two of them regretted not meeting earlier. They drank until night time before leaving the restaurant. Little brother, do you have a place to stay? If you don't have a place to stay, you can come to this old man's place. The old man looked at Lin Feng and said with a smile, Then I'll have to trouble Senior. Lin Feng cupped his fists. He did not reject the old man, because he really did not have a place to stay. Going to the old man's place was a good choice. Lin Feng followed the old man to his residence. The old man's residence was a dilapidated courtyard in the southeast corner of the town. The old man came to the old man's residence. They drank until late at night. Lin Feng was known to not get drunk after 1,000 cups, but he was still dizzy from drinking. When he woke up the next morning, he found that the snow had stopped. The snow on the ground was very thick. Lin Feng planned to leave. He wanted to go to the forest to take a look. Would he be able to gain anything? Little brother, take this. The old man handed something to Lin Feng. Lin Feng took the things the old man gave him. Lin Feng found that it was a wooden figure. What is this? Lin Feng asked. It's carved from peach wood. It's used to ward off evil. The old man said. Lin Feng nodded and left. After Lin Feng left, a nine-tailed fox ran in from outside. Then, the nine-tailed fox transformed into a little lowly who looked about 11 or 12 years old. She was very beautiful. A descendant of sinners' blood, the little lowly said. Yes. The old man nodded. I heard that recently Divine Heavenly King's grandson, Divine Flame Saint, was killed by a young human cultivator. The Sacred Army is currently looking for that young human cultivator. Could that young human cultivator be this kid? The little lowly asked in astonishment. The old man said, It should be him. Why bother with him? We can't afford to make any mistakes in what we're about to do. Little lowly immediately said. Her voice had already become somewhat cold. Speaking of which, the ancestors of sinners' blood had a good relationship with the ancestors of our devil race back then. This kid wants to find the Snow Lady and snatch her snow spirit bone fire. He's simply courting death. Out of respect for his ancestors, we'll help him. The old man said. The little lowly frowned when she heard the old man's words, but she did not say anything. When will the Lord arrive? The old man asked. We'll have to wait for a while. However, the Lord should be coming out of seclusion soon. The little lowly said, I hope we'll succeed. The old man said, after taking a deep breath, We've planned this for tens of thousands of years. We'll definitely succeed. The little lowly said. Her words were more like words of encouragement to him. Lin Feng naturally did not know that a nine-tailed fox would appear in the old man's courtyard after he left. Lin Feng also did not know the old man's identity. After entering the forest, Lin Feng quickly headed deeper into the forest. This forest was called the Arctic Ancient Forest. It was said that it extended all the way to the extreme north. It was extremely huge. The Arctic Ancient Forest was an extremely dangerous place. Wild beasts ran rampant here. Moreover, there were many terrifying restrictions. If one was careless, one might die in the Arctic Ancient Forest. Lin Feng went deeper into the forest. 10 days later, intense fluctuations came from the depths of the forest. Lin Feng was also alarmed. He quickly flew deeper into the forest. Lin Feng saw it from afar. Hundreds of cultivators. They surrounded a silver-haired woman. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. Could that silver-haired woman be the Snow Lady? Author's note, this is the 4th update. Brothers, have you completed the reinforcement mission today? Everyone, go and complete the mission. You're currently ranked 13th. Don't fall. Chapter 4483. The silver-haired woman's figure was graceful. She was dressed in white. Coupled with her silver hair, she gave off a mysterious vibe. The silver-haired woman's cultivation was unimaginably powerful. Even though she was surrounded by hundreds of cultivators, her expression did not change. Snow Lady, we have no intention of harming your life. If you hand over the snow spirit bone fire, we can spare your life. A cultivator shouted coldly. They wanted to make the Snow Lady submit. Snow Lady. She was indeed the Snow Lady. Lin Feng had guessed that this woman was the Snow Lady. Now, this woman was indeed the Snow Lady. But it was impossible for these people to make the Snow Lady hand over the snow spirit bone fire obediently. No one would agree to such a thing. If it was Lin Feng would not agree to it either. Scram, or die, the Snow Lady said coldly. You want to do this the hard way? Attack together and kill the Snow Lady. A cultivator shouted, Kill! Following that, a group of cultivators yelled as they charged towards the Snow Maiden in an attempt to kill her. Lin Feng could not help but mutter to himself. Didn't Bai Lianshan say that the Snow Lady would seduce cultivators? He looked at the Snow Lady's cold expression. Did she look like the kind of woman who would seduce men? It seemed that he could not take all the rumors seriously. Frozen heaven and earth, the snow lady's cold voice sounded. Then the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. The cultivators' bodies also started to tremble from the cold. As time passed, many cultivators started to turn into human popsicles. The snow lady's methods were indeed very powerful. The cultivators who were sealed in ice were directly shattered. They died on the spot. However, not everyone was sealed in ice by the snow lady. There were many cultivators who were not sealed in ice by the snow lady. Their mystiques and treasures arrived in front of the snow lady and blasted towards her. Nation of Snow. The snow lady unleashed another powerful mystique, and an ancient kingdom appeared behind her. It was an ancient nation. It was a silver nation with snow floating in the air, in the forest, above the palace, above the grassland, and other places. They were all covered in snow. That place, it snows 365 days a year. The snow in that place, it would never stop. The country of thousands of snow shook slightly. In an instant, a terrifying power filled the air. The thaumaturgies of the cultivators were shattered one after another. One by one, the magic treasures of the cultivators were sent flying. Under such circumstances, for the surrounding cultivators, this was naturally extremely bad news. Bang, bang, bang. Then one cultivator after another was sent flying by the country of endless snow. The injuries of the cultivators who were sent flying by the country of thousands of snow were also different. Some were directly killed, some were seriously injured, and some were lightly injured. The Snow Maiden's abilities were truly powerful. At this moment, everyone realized that the Snow Maidens were not to be trifled with. This woman was far more terrifying than he had imagined. The surviving cultivators didn't dare to continue fighting. They all fled in all directions. And at this moment, in the void, a dazzling demonic light illuminated the world. Next, the demonic light descended from the sky. It instantly tore apart the Snow Maiden's country of thousands of snow. Then, the demonic light blasted towards the Snow Maidens. The Snow Maidens were shocked. The person who attacked was definitely an extremely terrifying existence. The combat strength of this existence, it must be incomparably heaven-defying. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to break through her thaumaturgy. With a flash of light, a treasure appeared in the Snow Maiden's hands. It was a cold moon dagger. The Snow Maidens held the cold moon dagger and directly attacked the demonic light. Clang! In the next moment, the cold moon dagger in the Snow Maiden's hands collided with the demonic light, and an earth-shattering sound of collision rang out. The demonic light revealed its true body, and it wasn't a real demonic light. It was the transformation of a cultivator. That cultivator held a sinister and terrifying demonic saber in his hands. Divine Sect Tao, the seventh son of the divine heavenly king. This person is a heaven immortal expert. The cultivators who were originally running away immediately exclaimed when they saw the cultivator holding the demonic saber attacking the Snow Maidens. The divine heavenly king had many heirs, and most of them held positions in the sacred army. The three strongest heirs were quasi-true immortal experts. He was the deputy commander of the sacred army and had many experts under him. Although Shun Zhongdao couldn't compare to his brothers, his cultivation was still extremely terrifying. Divine Sect Tao, both immortal and demonic. He was very resourceful, although no one had a good impression of Divine Sect Tao. But at this moment, everyone's target was the Snow Maidens. Therefore, the cultivators who were running away immediately turned around when they saw Divine Sect Tao and planned to join forces with Divine Sect Tao to attack the Snow Maidens. The Snow Maidens were powerful, But facing the combined attack of Divine Sect Tao and so many experts, the situation was naturally not good. F***CK. How shameless! Yi Zichen muttered, seeing so many cultivators attacking the Snow Maidens. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel speechless. Even though Lin Feng really wanted the Snow Spirit Bone Fire, he didn't want it. But Lin Feng's idea was to try and negotiate with the other party, take out something that the other party was interested in, and then exchange it. Lin Feng didn't want to kill the other party and take the Snow Spirit Bone Fire. Of course, Lin Feng had killed the Sky Demon Emperor's son before and took the Black Flame God Devouring Fire from him. But that was because Lin Feng had an irreconcilable enmity with the Sky Demon Emperor's son. He didn't have any enmity with the Snow Maidens. Naturally, he wouldn't use the same method to deal with the Sky Demon Emperor's son. But Lin Feng didn't care how others dealt with the Snow Maidens. The Snow Maidens retreated under the combined attack of the cultivators. These people's thoughts were simple: kill the Snow Maidens, then take the Snow Spirit Bone Fire. Although their cultivation wasn't as strong as Divine Sect Tao, but some of them had hidden some special methods. If they could get the Snow Spirit Bone Fire, these cultivators were confident that they could escape successfully, so they weren't worried about being killed here. Divine Sect Tao hid behind the Snow Maidens and slashed at her with his saber again. The Snow Maidens turned around, and the cold moon dagger in her hand clashed with Divine Sect Tao's demonic saber again. After this clash, the Snow Maidens couldn't hold on any longer, and she was sent flying by Divine Sect Tao. The other cultivators' treasures also attacked. Although the Snow Maidens took out a defensive treasure to block the attacks, she was still severely injured. However, she still suffered a great deal of damage. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and her defensive magic treasure also became dim. Die. Chapter 4484. Shun Zongdao's attack was too powerful. If this attack landed on Snow Lady's body, then Snow Lady would probably die a tragic death. Even Lin Feng thought that Snow Lady wouldn't be able to block Shun Zongdao's attack. However, he didn't expect the Snow Lady's body to be covered in runes. Those runes were very mysterious. Those mysterious runes protected the Snow Maiden within them. When Shun Zongdao's attack came, it was blocked by those runes. Of course, that didn't mean that Snow Lady wasn't hurt. In fact, Snow Lady was hurt too. She was sent flying, and her face became even paler. Shun Zongdao's attack didn't break through the mysterious runes protecting Snow Lady. However, there was still a terrifying power that passed through the runes and violently struck Snow Lady's body. That terrifying power dealt significant damage to the Snow Maidens. The rest of the cultivators rushed forward to kill Snow Lady. However, at that moment, a huge gust of wind blew. Snowflakes flew everywhere. Countless snowflakes were swept up by the huge gust of wind. Such a powerful gust of wind seemed to cover the entire sky. It was extremely terrifying. Anyone who saw such a gust of wind would feel their hair stand on end. A large number of cultivators were swept into the gust of wind. Some of the weaker cultivators' bodies exploded, and they died on the spot. At this moment, Snow Lady probably only used this technique when she was risking her life. Otherwise, this technique wouldn't be so terrifying. Shun Zongdao was also swept into the gust of wind. Of course, Shun Zongdao was powerful enough. Snow Lady's powerful attack didn't cause any damage to Shun Zongdao. After the gust of wind dissipated, Snow Lady had already disappeared without a trace. Shun Zongdao couldn't help but roar. Snow Lady has already been severely injured. Search, we must find Snow Lady. If we can't take this opportunity to kill Snow Lady, it won't be so easy to kill Snow Lady in the future. Then these cultivators quickly dispersed and began to search for traces of the Snow Maiden. In the depths of the mountain forest, there was a place filled with restrictions that cultivators could not pass through. There was a cold pond here. This frozen pond was very special. Although the temperature of the frozen pond was extremely low, however, when one's body was injured, one only needed to soak in the frozen pond for a period of time. When the time came, his body's injuries would quickly recover. The Snow Maidens had discovered this lake by chance. From then on, whenever the Snow Maidens were injured, the Snow Maidens would be killed. She would come to the cold pond to heal her injuries. Pieces of clothing slid down one by one. The Snow Maiden only wore her undergarments as she entered the glacial pond. Then she closed her eyes. Although the temperature of the cold pond was bone-chilling, however, the Snow Maidens weren't afraid of the frigid temperature of the lake. Or perhaps she was already used to this kind of cold temperature. The Snow Lady felt very comfortable as her body soaked in the cold pond. If I'm not mistaken, this cold pond should have healing properties, right? Suddenly, a voice sounded, startling the Snow Maiden. The Snow Maiden opened her eyes. His cold eyes looked in the direction of the voice. The Snow Maiden saw a young cultivator. A dense killing intent immediately appeared in her eyes. The Snow Lady didn't expect this. Someone had actually followed her here without making a sound. Furthermore, the person who followed her in was such a young human cultivator. This cultivator was none other than Lin Feng. The Snow Maiden wouldn't underestimate Lin Feng just because he was young Lin Feng. In fact, most of the time, the younger the cultivator, the more extraordinary they were, the more one had to pay attention to them. This was because those young cultivators were often very terrifying. For example, this young human cultivator in front of her, he was actually able to hide from her senses, although her senses had decreased a lot because of her injuries. However, that was only relatively speaking. Her senses were still very strong. It wasn't something that ordinary people could compare to. However, she couldn't even detect this young human cultivator in front of her. This already explained too many things. Don't misunderstand. I didn't come here with any hostility towards you. Lin Feng looked at the Snow Maiden in the cold pond with interest. She wasn't embarrassed. He chatted with the Snow Maiden while admiring the beauty bathing. It was truly an extreme enjoyment. What did you see? The Snow Maiden looked coldly at Lin Feng. This woman was clearly more concerned about whether Lin Feng had seen her bathing. As for Lin Feng's motive for coming here, it became a secondary concern. Lin Feng said, "When you entered the water, I was still breaking the array. I didn't come here at all, so you don't have to worry." After hearing Lin Feng's words, the Snow Maiden's expression became slightly better. Then, the Snow Maiden said, "Guard outside for me. If anyone comes, kill them without mercy." Under normal circumstances, no one would come here. However, the Snow Maiden saw that Lin Feng had found this place. Therefore, she couldn't guarantee that no other cultivators would come here. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. This woman was quite good at ordering people around. She actually ordered him to guard her. However, Lin Feng didn't say much. This was because the Snow Maiden's injuries weren't light. Lin Feng knew that the Snow Maiden needed treatment. Of course, Lin Feng also knew that this was the best time for him to negotiate. After all, the Snow Maiden was injured. Lin Feng felt more confident. However, Lin Feng was a person who cooperated with others. He had always adhered to the principle of mutual benefit. Therefore, he wouldn't take advantage of the situation. Lin Feng found a smooth rock outside the lake. Then, he turned his back to the lake. Then, he sat cross-legged. Time slowly passed. After about 3 days, the Snow Maiden woke up from her cultivation. Lin Feng heard the Snow Maiden walking out of the lake. However, Lin Feng didn't turn around. The Snow Maiden should have recovered by now. Even if she hadn't, she should be fully recovered soon. The Snow Maiden's cultivation level was too high. The divine sect Tao was at the heaven immortal realm, since the Snow Maiden could fight against the divine sect Tao. This meant that the Snow Maiden should be at this level. What do you want to cooperate with me for? The Snow Maiden's voice came from behind. Lin Feng turned around. He realized that the Snow Maiden had already tidied herself up. He looked at the Snow Maiden up close. Only then did he realize how beautiful this woman was. She was so beautiful that it made one's heart tremble. She was so beautiful that it made one's heart beat faster. Of course, Lin Feng had seen many beautiful women. Therefore, although the Snow Maiden was beautiful, she didn't look like a mortal woman. However, Lin Feng's self-control was very strong. He wasn't mesmerized by the Snow Maiden's peerless beauty. Chapter 44:85. Lin Feng calmed himself down and said, "Do you want to kill Shen Zongdao? If you and I work together, we'll definitely be able to kill him." As the son of the divine heavenly king, Shen Zongdao had followed the divine heavenly king and killed countless sinners' blood descendants. Lin Feng naturally wanted to kill Shen Zongdao. Not just Shen Zongdao, but Shen Zongtian, Shen Zongshan, the divine heavenly king, and the others. Lin Feng wanted to take their lives. However, Lin Feng knew that those existences were too powerful. How could it be so easy to take their lives? However, Shen Zongdao was different. Shen Zongdao was a heavenly immortal, although a heavenly immortal was already powerful enough. However, if the plan was meticulous, there was a high chance of killing an expert of that level. Kill Shen Zongdao? With just you? Do you think you're qualified to work together with me? Snow Lady sneered at Lin Feng with a look of disdain. Lin Feng said, "Of course I'm qualified to work with you. When I first arrived here, I discovered that the restrictions here were extremely powerful. I can use a formation to connect the restrictions here. That way, the restrictions will be able to unleash their full power. When the time comes, I'll control the formation to assist you. Killing Shen Zongdao is highly likely." The Snow Woman glanced at Lin Feng indifferently and asked, "What? Are you very skilled in formations?" Lin Feng smiled and said, "I wouldn't dare to say that I'm very skilled, but I'm the successor of the Celestial Master sect. I'm sure my mastery of formations is pretty good, right?" Snow Lady looked at Lin Feng in surprise. She had naturally heard of the Celestial Master Taoism. Although she had never seen anyone from the Celestial Master Taoism, she knew how profound their attainments in array formation were. Lin Feng was young. However, Lin Feng was the successor of the Celestial Master sect. His mastery of formations must be extremely high. "I can give it a try." The Snow Lady narrowed her eyes, and a murderous look appeared in her eyes. Previously, because of the divine sect Tao, the Snow Maidens were severely injured. This was a grudge. The Snow Maidens naturally didn't forget. Lin Feng said, "Since you agree, then it's easy. I'll go set up the formation later." "What? Do you have another reason for looking for me?" the Snow Maiden asked as she looked at Lin Feng. She was a very smart person. Naturally, she couldn't tell that Lin Feng had other motives for this trip. Lin Feng said, "That's right, there is indeed another purpose. I heard that you control the Snow Spirit Bone Fire. I wonder if the rumors outside are true. So what if I am? So what if he wasn't? This doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, right?" The Snow Maiden said bluntly. Lin Feng continued, "I want to make a deal with you. I plan to use something to exchange for your heavenly flame. No matter what it is, as long as you like it, I can give it to you. top-grade magic treasures, or even immortal scriptures. What do you think? The Snow Maiden said, "You're quite generous. However, I didn't refine the snow spirit bone flame." You didn't refine the snow spirit bone flame? Didn't the outside world say that you refined the snow spirit bone flame? A look of disbelief appeared on Lin Feng's face. Back then, when I broke through to the divine fire realm, I used the snow spirit bone flame to ignite my divine fire. That's why my divine fire contains a trace of the snow spirit bone flame's origin energy. That's why others think that I refined the snow spirit bone flame, but in reality, I didn't refine the snow spirit bone flame. The Snow Maiden said. Lin Feng was very shocked. He hadn't expected the truth to be like this. However, Lin Feng quickly regained his senses. The Snow Maiden didn't refine the snow spirit bone flame. However, the Snow Maiden said that when she ignited her divine fire, she used the snow spirit bone flame to ignite it. This meant that the Snow Maiden had indeed come into contact with the snow spirit bone flame. However, perhaps she didn't have the ability to refine the snow spirit bone flame back then. Do you know where the snow spirit bone flame is? Lin Feng asked. Of course. Why? Do you want it? Save it. No one can refine the heavenly fire. The heavenly fire will instantly destroy your body, the Snow Maiden said. Lin Feng flicked his finger. The purple earth core fire flew out. As for the other 4 heavenly fires, Lin Feng didn't take them out. Lin Feng just wanted to tell the Snow Maiden he could refine the heavenly fire. He didn't want to show off in front of the Snow Maiden, so he just needed to show the Snow Maiden his heavenly fire. There was no need to take out all the heavenly fire. Heavenly fire. When she saw the heavenly fire that Lin Feng took out, the Snow Maiden couldn't help but frown slightly, although she didn't know what kind of heavenly fire Lin Feng took out. However, Lin Feng took out the heavenly fire, which meant that Lin Feng could refine the heavenly fire. The Snow Maiden felt that this was unbelievable. Generally speaking, a cultivator's physical body couldn't withstand the backlash of the heavenly fire, unless it was in existence with an extremely heaven-defying physical body. It was only possible to withstand the backlash of the heavenly fire and finally refine it. And Lin Feng was just a human cultivator. Human cultivators had weak physical bodies. This was something that everyone knew. However, Lin Feng had refined the heavenly fire. Therefore, the Snow Maiden was also puzzled as to how Lin Feng did it. Now that I've proven that I can refine the heavenly fire, can you tell me where the snow spirit bone fire is? Lin Feng looked at the Snow Maiden and asked. The Snow Maiden said, That's a secret place, an extremely dangerous secret place. How about this? If you can kill Shen Zongdao, I'll bring you to that secret place. Secret place. Lin Feng frowned slightly. The Snow Maiden said, That's right. When I entered that secret place, I almost died. Fortunately, I was lucky. Not only did I use the snow spirit bone fire to ignite my divine fire, but I also escaped from the secret place. Originally, I planned to not explore that secret place until I reached the true immortal realm. But now I've changed my mind. If we work together, we can try to explore that secret place. Lin Feng nodded and said, That's great. Let's not delay any longer. I'll go set up the formation now. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng leaped out and walked toward the forest in front of him. The forest in front of him. Restrictions were densely packed. Many of the restrictions had already been broken, so it was very difficult for the restrictions here to form a continuous attack. What Lin Feng needed to do now was to use the formation to perfectly connect these restrictions together. Then, these restrictions would be able to form a continuous attack. When the time came, he would lure Shen Zongdao into the formation. Then, he would be able to activate the formation and attack Shin Zongdao continuously. The Snow Maiden had more or less recovered by now. The formation, the Snow Maiden, and his many treasures. Lin Feng was at least 70 to 80% confident that he could kill Shin Zongdao. Chapter 44-86. Lin Feng planned to set up some top-notch arrays because Lin Feng was worried that ordinary arrays wouldn't work. Moreover, Divine Zongdao's cultivation was so powerful that ordinary arrays would be easily broken by Divine Zongdao. So, since he was setting up an array, he naturally had to set up a stronger array. This way, Lin Feng would be able to rest assured. The probability of success. It could also be higher. Lin Feng spent about 7 days setting up the array. After the array was set up, Lin Feng activated the array, and in an instant, the densely packed restrictions in the forest were completely awakened. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng revealed a smile on his face. He waved his hand. Instantly, the array and the densely packed restrictions that he had set up completely fell silent. After doing all this, Lin Feng couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Lin Feng had the impression that the deployment spells and deployment spells were extremely powerful. Therefore, regarding the matter of killing Divine Zongdao, Lin Feng was full of confidence. Lin Feng looked at Snow Lady and said, "Now that the array is set up, the next step is to lure Divine Zongdao out. I'll lure Divine Zongdao here." Snow Lady said. Lin Feng said, "No, I'll go." "You're going?" Snow Lady frowned slightly. Obviously, she felt that it was extremely dangerous for Lin Feng to lure Divine Zongdao here. It was no wonder that Snow Lady thought so. Even though Lin Feng had shown many extraordinary things, he was still very strong. However, after all, there was still a big gap between Lin Feng's realm and Divine Zongdao's realm. The difference in their realms was so great. If Lin Feng lured Divine Zongdao here, what if Divine Zongdao caught up to him? At that time, it would definitely be a dead end. Lin Feng seemed to know what Snow Lady was thinking, and said, "Divine Zongdao is an expert of the heavenly immortal realm, so he is naturally an extremely smart person. When he saw Fairy appear and led him to another place, what do you think Divine Zongdao will think? This guy will definitely be suspicious, so it won't be easy for you to lure Shin Zongdao here. Once we arouse Shin Zongdao's suspicion, it will be even more troublesome to deal with Shin Zongdao in the future. As for me going, it's the most suitable thing to do, because I don't know Shin Zongdao, and Shin Zongdao knows that Fairy is a lone wolf. Therefore, Shin Zongdao won't associate me with Fairy. I only need to provoke and humiliate Shin Zongdao, and Shin Zongdao will definitely want to tear me into pieces. At that time, he will definitely hunt me down and won't suspect me." The Snow Lady said, "It's not that simple, because your cultivation level isn't high. You dare to provoke the Divine Sect Dao with your cultivation. The Divine Sect Dao will definitely be suspicious. I will use the array to trap Shin Zongdao. Then I'll provoke him again. I'm good at formations, and I'm extremely confident in my own formations. Therefore, I feel that I can use formations to kill cultivators with high cultivation bases. Is this reason sufficient?" Lin Feng said to the Snow Maiden. The Snow Lady frowned slightly. In the world of cultivators, there was no lack of cultivators who were extremely confident in themselves. These cultivators usually had some extraordinary methods, and these methods could guarantee that they could kill cultivators with high cultivation bases at low cultivation bases. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the world of cultivators. Therefore, when it really happened, many people might still feel extremely shocked, but after the shock, they would naturally feel that it was only natural. Lin Feng's attainments in formations were extremely high. Therefore, Lin Feng felt that with his proficiency in formations, he could deal with cultivators with high cultivation bases. This was completely reasonable. The Snow Lady looked at Lin Feng and said, "Then you be careful. I'll wait here for your good news." Lin Feng nodded and flew outside. It was actually very easy to find out information about Shen Zongdao. This person usually spent most of his time in the army camp. Especially during this period of time, he had also sent out the cultivator army of the Sacred Army. The cultivator army entered the ancient forest to search for the injured Snow Lady. Therefore, he had been waiting for news in the army camp. Lin Feng chose a very good place. That place was a naturally formed killing ground of 7. It was very suitable for setting up killing formations. Lin Feng set up dozens of killing formations. Then he enlightened a giant forest ape. Then he imprinted a message in the jade tube. Lin Feng had the giant forest ape give the jade tube to Shen Zongdao. The giant forest ape arrived outside Shen Zongdao's army camp. It saw the patrolling cultivators of the Sacred Army. The giant forest ape spoke in human language. "My master has a letter for Shen Zongdao. Why aren't you going to report it? If you delay the letter between Shen Zongdao and my master, how many heads do you have left to lose?" Seeing the ferocious appearance of this ferocious beast that had suddenly appeared, the patrolling cultivators all frowned, because they didn't know where the giant forest ape came from. The captain of the guards said, "Wait here, I'll send someone to report to my master right now." Soon after, the guard captain sent a cultivator to report this matter. Not long after, the cultivator returned. Then he brought the giant forest ape to see Shen Zongdao. Shen Zongdao asked, "Who is your master? Why are you looking for me?" The giant forest ape said, "Everything my master wants to say is recorded in the jade tube." After the giant forest ape finished speaking, the jade tube was wrapped in magic power. Then it flew towards Shen Zongdao. Shen Zongdao's divine sense entered the jade tube. Lin Feng's voice resounded in Shen Zongdao's mind. "Snow Girl has been captured by me. If you want the Snow Ladies, then bring enough high-grade immortal stones. Come to the 7 Despair Mountain Range." "Snow Girl has been captured?" Shen Zongdao frowned slightly. Shen Zongdao was a cautious person. After hearing this news, he instantly suspected whether or not the other party was lying to him. However, thinking about it carefully, the other party had no reason to lie to him. How many people in the Undying Realm dared to offend the Sacred Army? And behind Shen Zongdao stood the entire Sacred Army. "There's no mention of your master's identity." Shen Zongdao frowned. The giant forest ape said, "You'll know once you see it." Shen Zongdao waved his hand and let the giant forest ape leave. Then he pondered. Soon, Shen Zongdao sneered. "Any schemes and tricks are useless in the face of absolute strength. I don't care who you are. If you're sincere in your cooperation, then I'll let it go. If you dare to scheme against me, then I'll make sure you die, without a burial ground." For safety's sake, when they set off, Shen Zongdao took 1,000 dragon knights with him. This army of dragon knights was the strongest elite army under Shen Zongdao's command. Shen Zongdao believed that with this army of dragon knights, even if he faced a quasi-true immortal expert, he would have a way to kill them. As for true immortals, Shen Zongdao didn't even consider cultivators of this level. If a cultivator of this level wanted to deal with him, they could just directly attack. There was no need for any schemes or tricks. P.S. Brothers, this is today's 8th chapter, the first chapter to make up for the previous 2 chapters. Also, the character support's ranking has fallen to 15th. I want to cry, but have no tears. Brothers, help me up. I'm counting on you guys. Chapter 4487. Soon, Shen Zongdao led the army of dragon knights to the 7 Despair Mountain Range. Lin Feng stood on top of a mountain in the depths of the Seven Despair mountain range, coldly looking at the incoming group of cultivators. Seeing the army that Shen Zongdao brought, Lin Feng was speechless. This guy was a sky immortal expert. How could he be so timid? How could he bring so many experts with him? Kid, were you the one who told the giant ape to send me a message? Shen Zongdao led the army of dragon knights to the top of the mountain range. Then Shen Zongdao frowned at Lin Feng. No wonder Shen Zongdao frowned. After all, when Shen Zongdao saw Lin Feng, he realized that Lin Feng was too young. How much cultivation could such a young cultivator have? How could he capture the Snow Lady? Was this a joke? I was the one who told the giant ape to send you a message. Shen Zongdao, this place will be your burial ground. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng waved his hand. He directly activated the killing formation here. Then, the densely packed formation came to life. Every formation emitted a terrifying wave of energy that could destroy the heavens and the earth. That wave of fluctuation caused people to involuntarily feel a kind of feeling of being overwhelmed with shock. Apart from that, the Seven Despair mountain range was overflowing with endless killing intent. This was the land of 7 kills. It was extremely dangerous. Lin Feng used the formation to mobilize the power of 7 kills here. After the power of 7 kills merged with Lin Feng's formation, the formation's power suddenly increased. You ant, how dare you scheme against me? You're courting death. Break the formation and kill this ant. After the formation was activated, Shen Zongdao couldn't help but roar in exasperation. As soon as Shen Zongdao finished speaking, the formation's power was released. Lin Feng made the first move and attacked everyone trapped in the formation. The power of dozens of killing formations was completely released. Within the formation, all kinds of terrifying attacks swept across the void. Shen Zongdao's cultivation naturally had no problem dealing with the formation's power. However, the Dragon Knights were already having a hard time dealing with the might of the formation. Of course, although it was a little strenuous, they still managed to resist the attack of the formation. Shen Zongdao's expression sank. He didn't expect a young cultivator like Lin Feng to be able to set up such a powerful formation. Could it be that the Great Array was not set up by Lin Feng? Was Lin Feng just a puppet that was pushed to the front? Was there another expert hiding behind Lin Feng? Let's not talk about whether Lin Feng really had an expert hiding behind him. Shen Zongdao decided to break the array first. Just as he was about to break the formation by force, who would have thought that 5 powerful stone swords quickly slashed towards him? Shen Zongdao was slightly shocked and did not dare to be careless. He held the demonic saber in his hand and slashed at the stone sword. Clang, 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 clang. Shen Zongdao's demonic blade sent the stone sword flying. But at this moment, mournful screams rang out one after another without end. Shen Zongdao looked over. Next, his anger was overflowing because he didn't know when it started. An endless swarm of insects appeared in the Great Array. At this moment, the swarm of insects attacked the Dragon Knight Legion. As one of the most elite troops of the Sacred Legion, the Dragon Knight Legion was naturally very powerful. Man and dragon as one. They were invincible. They charged forward in the great battle. It was simply appalling. However, here, the Dragon Knight Legion could not exert any effect because the Dragon Knight Legion was trapped by the Great Array. Now, the Dragon Knight Legion was resisting the attack of the Great Array with great difficulty. Although they resisted the attack of the Great Array, their minds were also drawn in by the Great Array. They had no time to be distracted. Another point, those dragons were huge in size, and the swarm of insects although the swarm of insects was densely packed and innumerable. But in fact, whether it was the great desolate demon refining insect or the celestial devouring insect, they were relatively small, and their defense was extremely strong. It was extremely difficult to kill them, so a large number of insects quickly approached these dragon knights and dragons. Then the swarm of insects began to eat these dragon knights and dragons. Many of the dragon knights had been gnawed clean, leaving only skeletons behind. Then, the dragons were also eaten clean by the swarm of insects. Now, Lin Feng's swarm of insects had begun to self-evolve. The so-called self-evolution meant that there was no need for Lin Feng to cultivate them. They could promote their own evolution by devouring all kinds of things. In this way, their strength would continue to increase. Now, Lin Feng's two large insect swarms had been constantly evolving, so the strength of the two large insect swarms was also constantly increasing. Seeing the cultivators and dragons under his command being eaten clean by the swarm of insects, Shun Zhongdao was simply mad with hatred. He had never encountered such a sullen thing. The key was to watch the cultivators and dragons under his command being killed by the other party, and there was nothing he could do. This kind of feeling almost drove Shun Zhongdao crazy. "Who the hell are you? Why are you targeting me?" Shun Zhongdao roared out. He was indeed quite depressed now. The cultivator in front of him, who wanted to kill him, was very unfamiliar to Shun Zhongdao. He didn't even have any impression of him. So Shun Zhongdao didn't even know what happened before he was schemed against. Naturally, Shun Zhongdao felt very depressed. "You deserve to die," Lin Feng said with an indifferent expression. "I know. You are a descendant of the sinner's blood. You must be a descendant of the sinner's blood." Suddenly, Shun Zhongdao's eyes flashed with a cold, killing intent. Other than a descendant of the sinner's blood, who would dare to attack him? Other than a descendant of the sinner's blood, who would have such a deep hatred for the sacred army? So, Shun Zhongdao guessed that Lin Feng was a descendant of the sinner's blood. Shun Zhongdao's face suddenly showed a cold, killing intent. He said, "A centipede dies but never falls down. Sooner or later, I will slaughter all the descendants of the sinner's blood." After saying that, Shun Zhongdao used his ultimate move, one with the blade, shattering heaven and earth. Shun Zhongdao's body, it directly merged with the demonic blade in his hand. Then it turned into a dazzling ray of demonic light. It slashed toward the great array. In the air, a series of clanging sounds could be heard. Lin Feng's 5 stone swords were sent flying. Then Shun Zhongdao and the demonic blade merged into one to form a killing light, which displayed an extremely heaven-defying battle strength. That beam of killing light directly tore apart one grand formation after another, as expected of a heavenly immortal expert. "How terrifying!" Yi Fuqian murmured. Seeing Shun Zhongdao's great power, Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. He put away the 5 stone swords. Then he quickly flew into the distance. Without Lin Feng's support, the great array's power was greatly reduced. So it was quickly torn apart by Shun Zhongdao. Shun Zhongdao rushed out. Then he returned to his original body. However, at this moment, Shun Zhongdao's magic power was very weak. Clearly, that one with the blade technique had consumed a lot of Shun Zhongdao's energy. If it weren't for the dangerous situation, Shun Zhongdao wouldn't have used one with the blade so easily. Chapter 4488. Shun Zhongdao hurriedly took out a bottle of spirit liquid and drank it. He didn't know what that bottle of spirit liquid was, but after drinking it, Shun Zhongdao's magic power quickly recovered. The others also rushed out. But this time, Shun Zhongdao's side lost more than 300 dragon knights and 300 giant dragons. This made Shun Zhongdao's heart ache. "Chase," Shun Zhongdao said in a deep voice. He now hated Lin Feng to the bone. He wanted to eat Lin Feng's flesh and drink Lin Feng's blood. So, how could he let Lin Feng escape? Shun Zhongdao led the Dragon Knights to chase after Lin Feng. But the Dragon Knights were far slower than Shun Zhongdao, so it didn't take long for them to be completely left behind. And Shun Zhongdao didn't have time to care about the Dragon Knights. He increased his speed to the extreme. He continued to chase after the escaping Lin Feng. Finally, 6 hours later, Shun Zhongdao caught up to Lin Feng. "Kid, I have to say that your great formation level is very high, but so what? With the great formation, you're still not my opponent. Now, have you thought about how you're going to die?" Shun Zhongdao's eyes flashed with a cold light. Killing Lin Feng directly was too easy for Lin Feng. Shun Zhongdao was even thinking about how to capture Lin Feng, how to torture Lin Feng. Only then would he be able to vent the hatred in his heart. It was understandable that Shun Zhongdao had such thoughts, because he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Lin Feng. And Lin Feng was such a young cultivator. In Shun Zhongdao's eyes, it was simply a great humiliation. So, he absolutely couldn't let Lin Feng die so easily. I really miscalculated this time. I originally thought that I could rely on the formation to get rid of all of you. I didn't expect that the formation would be broken by you. Experts at the celestial immortal realm are really extraordinary. However, even if you break the formation, you still can't do anything to me, because with your tortoise speed, you'll never be able to catch up to me. Lin Feng curled his lips and said, after hearing Lin Feng's mocking words, Shun Zhongdao was almost angered to death. It was a young human cultivator. His realm wasn't particularly high either. He actually dared to say that his speed was that of a tortoise. He was an expert at the heavenly immortal level, a lofty existence. How could he accept such humiliation? In the eyes of the divine sect, Tao, Lin Feng was just an ant. He could slap Lin Feng to death with one hand. Shun Zhongdao increased his speed. He just wanted to catch Lin Feng as soon as possible. Then, when the time comes, that would be enough. He wanted to torture Lin Feng to his heart's content. While Shun Zhongdao increased his speed, Lin Feng also increased his speed. 8 small worlds floated beneath Lin Feng's feet. It was as if he was passing through the 8 small worlds. The distance between Lin Feng and Shun Zhongdao gradually increased. Lin Feng mocked, "You didn't believe me when I said you were that fast. Now, do you believe that you're that fast?" Shun Zhongdao's expression was incomparably gloomy. He was humiliated by Lin Feng again and again. Shun Zhongdao's mood was extremely bad. However, Shun Zhongdao couldn't catch up to Lin Feng. This was what made Shun Zhongdao the most furious. He was chasing after a young cultivator. Even with his speed as a heavenly immortal, he couldn't catch up to him. To Shun Zhongdao, he couldn't accept it. Shun Zhongdao said coldly, "Kid, don't be too happy now. You can't get rid of me at all. And your F.A. Li can't compare to my F.A. Li. At most, we'll have a long battle. Once you've used up most of your F.A. Li, you'll fall into my hands." As he said this, Shun Zhongdao's mood became slightly better. This was because Shun Zhongdao felt that this method was indeed not bad. As a heavenly immortal, you actually used such a despicable method to deal with me. Don't you feel ashamed? Even I feel embarrassed for you. If you still have a little self-awareness, you should quickly leave now instead of continuing to chase after me. Lin Feng shouted. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Shun Zhongdao felt that Lin Feng must be afraid. That was true. In this world, was there anyone who wasn't afraid of death? A bad life was better than a good death. Shun Zhongdao didn't think that there was anyone who wasn't afraid of death. Lin Feng must have realized how dangerous his situation was. Therefore, that was why he said those words to provoke him. Shen Zongdao, who saw everything clearly, sneered, "Kid, are you afraid now? If you are, then hurry up and stop. This way, I can give you a quick death. Otherwise, you should be able to imagine the consequences." Lin Feng no longer cared about Shen Zongdao and flew towards the depths of the forest. Shen Zongdao had already decided to fight a battle of attrition with Lin Feng. Therefore, he continued to chase after Lin Feng. While chasing after Lin Feng, he was still thinking about how to torture Lin Feng after capturing Lin Feng. Shen Zongdao thought of many methods. However, the prerequisite was to find Lin Feng. Only then could he use those methods on Lin Feng. Both sides, one running and one chasing. 10 days passed quickly. Shen Zongdao could clearly feel that Lin Feng's speed was beginning to decrease. However, Shen Zongdao's speed was still at his peak. "Kid, you don't seem to be able to hold on any longer. This battle of pursuit will end soon," Shen Zongdao sneered. Lin Feng still didn't care about Shen Zongdao. He continued to fly towards the depths of the forest. This place had already reached the periphery of the area covered with seals. Lin Feng rushed into the area and quickly rushed towards the depths. A broken restriction? Shen Zongdao frowned slightly. After seeing the broken seals, he became cautious. However, Shen Zongdao soon sneered. From Shen Zongdao's point of view, Lin Feng obviously wanted to use these broken seals to get rid of him. Since Lin Feng wasn't afraid of these seals, naturally, he didn't need to be afraid. After all, Shen Zongdao was a heavenly immortal expert. He had seen too many storms and waves. If he really encountered a dangerous situation, when the time came, he could definitely leave. Shen Zongdao was still confident. Shen Zongdao passed through the seals. Gradually, he went deeper into the area covered with restrictions. When Shen Zongdao arrived at the depths of the area, suddenly the formation runes around him intertwined, and many large formations were activated. It covered an area of 1,000 meters around them. Shen Zongdao was also trapped within. "Ha ha ha, Shen Zongdao, it's time for you to die." Lin Feng sneered. "Chain formation? Kid, I was able to break your formation before. I can do it again this time." Shen Zongdao sneered. "This formation is 100 times stronger than before. It won't be easy for you to break it. Moreover, I have help." Lin Feng sneered. "Help? Who is it?" Shen Zongdao asked in a deep voice. "It's me," Snow Lady said. Her clothes were as white as snow and fluttered like a fairy. She was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. Under the contrast of the white snow, she was as beautiful as a fairy in the snow. Chapter 44:89. When he saw the Snow Lady, Shen Zongdao's expression could no longer be described as ugly. Shen Zongdao knew that he had been tricked by Lin Feng, and he had been tricked so deeply. If he was only dealing with Lin Feng and the formation that Lin Feng had set up, Shen Zongdao was confident that he could escape. However, now that the Snow Lady had appeared here, things were getting troublesome. Even in a one-on-one battle, Shen Zongdao wasn't confident that he could defeat the Snow Lady, let alone now. "Attack," Lin Feng said. Then he activated the formation. After the formation was completely activated, the restrictions within the formation also came to life. Attacks covered the sky as they charged towards Shen Zongdao. At the same time, the Snow Lady charged into the formation with her cold moon dagger. Under Lin Feng's control, the attacks from the formation and restrictions couldn't harm the Snow Lady. They only targeted Shen Zongdao. Shen Zongdao was greatly suppressed. He couldn't help but roar, "How dare you trick me like this? This isn't something a hero would do." The Snow Lady curled her lips and said, "I'm a little girl, not a hero." Lin Feng laughed inwardly. It seemed that the Snow Lady could be quite humorous at times. Lin Feng wanted to shout, "I'm a little girl's man, not a hero." However, he could only think about it. Naturally, he didn't dare to say it out loud. Lin Feng said, "What's a hero? Can it be eaten?" After hearing Lin Feng and the Snow Lady's answers, Shun Zongdao was almost angered to death. Clearly, Lin Feng and the Snow Lady were playing with him. Lin Feng and the Snow Lady's attacks were getting stronger and stronger. Shun Zongdao found it harder and harder to defend himself. Now, Shun Zongdao had a taste of being surrounded. Negotiation? How about we negotiate? As long as you let me go, we can negotiate any conditions. Shun Zongdao said in a low voice. He now knew how dire his situation was. If the battle continued, he might really die at the hands of Lin Feng and the Snow Maidens. Taking the initiative to negotiate with Lin Feng and the Snow Lady was a great humiliation to the god sect. It would definitely become a stain in his life. However, this was the best solution at the moment. Shun Zongdao thought that once the negotiations were over and he was out of danger, he would lead his army to kill Lin Feng and the Snow Lady. When the time came, he was going to tear Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden to shreds. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to vent his anger and killing intent. Lin Feng said, "Negotiate? Sure, I love negotiating with people the most. I heard that your bloodline is also of the celestial race's bloodline, so there must be an ancient celestial scripture that was passed down, right? Hand over the immortal scripture." "You want my immortal sutra? Aren't you being too greedy?" Shun Zongdao's expression was extremely gloomy. Immortal sutras were precious. They were the foundation of their clan. If the upper echelons of the clan found out that he had told others about the immortal sutra, they would definitely be furious. When the time comes, he would definitely be executed by 1,000 cuts. Even if he was the son of the divine heavenly king, he would still die. This was the clan's rule. No one could go against the clan's rules. Is the immortal scripture more important than your life? Think about it carefully. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Next." His attacks were even more ferocious than before. All sorts of restrictions, all sorts of formations, all of them were activated. 5 stone swords, black dragon sword, green mountain sword, hell king bell, stone dagger, heavenly drum, 9 demons painting, 5 flames 7 birds fan, 12 heavenly flags, and many other treasures. All of them were taken out by Lin Feng and charged towards Shun Zongdao. Seeing so many magic treasures charging towards him, Shun Zongdao was shocked. How many multitasking did he have? How could he control so many magic treasures? This brat's ability, how could he be so abnormal? Not only was Shun Zongdao shocked, even the Snow Maiden was extremely shocked. Cultivators who could multitask could occasionally be seen. But Lin Feng was multitasking. Such an ability, it was unheard of. Seeing Lin Feng's prowess, the Snow Maiden's spirit couldn't help but be shaken. Her attacks were getting stronger and stronger. The Snow Maiden held the cold moon dagger and slashed out endless cold light. Behind the Snow Maiden, a cold moon even appeared. That cold moon crushed the void. It charged towards Shun Zongdao. It was extremely powerful. It was really shocking. Under the continuous attacks of Lin Feng, the Snow Maiden, the formation and the restrictions, Shun Zongdao was severely injured. Shun Zongdao was furious. He never thought that he would be in such a situation. Now he was in danger. Shun Zongdao felt the threat of death. Shun Zongdao didn't want to die. So, Shun Zongdao decided to agree to Lin Feng's conditions. "Don't kill me. I'm willing to give up my clan's sacred immortal scripture." Shun Zongdao shouted. The sacred immortal scripture was obviously the immortal scripture passed down by Shun Zongdao's clan. Shun Zongdao's clan was the heavenly human clan. His ancestors were extremely terrifying, so the immortal scripture they created was definitely extraordinary. Imprint the immortal scripture. Lin Feng squinted his eyes and said. Shun Zongdao took out a jade tube and began to imprint the immortal scripture. Then he imprinted the immortal scripture. Let me go, and I'll give you the immortal scripture. Otherwise, I'll destroy the jade tube immediately, Shun Zongdao said. I'll remove the formation, and you throw the jade tube to me, Lin Feng said. No problem. Shun Zongdao nodded. The Snow Maiden frowned slightly. She didn't know what Lin Feng was doing. Was he really going to let Shun Zongdao go? Lin Feng removed the formation. Shun Zongdao threw the jade tube to Lin Feng and rushed outside. However, the jade tube exploded in midair. Ha 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 ha, kid, you're really an idiot. I only used a little trick, and you were fooled, Shun Zongdao laughed sinisterly. However, in the next moment, Shun Zongdao's expression became extremely ugly because the dense array of restrictions in the forest were all awakened. Shun Zongdao had indeed left the formation set up by Lin Feng, but he hadn't left the forest. There were restrictions everywhere in the forest. Lin Feng's formation control technique could easily control these restrictions. Therefore, Shun Zongdao was stopped. Lin Feng sneered. I knew you would play tricks. Do you think I'll believe that you'll cooperate obediently? I asked you to imprint your clan's immortal scripture because I want to see if there are any restrictions in your mind. If there are restrictions in your mind, your soul will definitely be destroyed when you imprint the immortal scripture. Then, we'll just admit that we're unlucky and can't hope to get your immortal scripture. If you can imprint the immortal scripture, it means that there aren't any restrictions in your mind. After we suppress you, we can search your soul without worry. We won't have to worry about being attacked by the restrictions in your mind. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Shun Zongdao's expression became extremely ugly. He originally thought that he had tricked Lin Feng. He didn't expect that he would be tricked by Lin Feng. P.S. Lin Feng has refined 6 heavenly flames. They are the purple earth core fire, black flame god incinerating fire, underworld flame, golden dragon divine flame, black flame god engulfing fire, and green dragon true fire. There were 2 places where it was mistakenly written as 5 heavenly flames. It has now been corrected. Everyone, have you done your support mission today? There are still 8 chapters today. This is the 3rd chapter. Chapter 4490. Previously, Xuan Nu was confused as to why Lin Feng wanted to cooperate with Shun Zongdao. It turned out that Lin Feng had already seen through Shun Zongdao's intentions. Therefore, Lin Feng had schemed against Shun Zongdao. Xuan Nu couldn't help but admire Lin Feng's meticulous planning. If there was a restriction in Shun Zongdao's mind, he could use the soul-searching technique on Shun Zongdao. They might be attacked by the restriction in Shun Zongdao's mind. If the restriction in Shun Zongdao's mind was too powerful, it might destroy them. But now, he didn't have to worry about that. Lin Feng and Xuan Nu began to attack Shun Zongdao. Although they had left the formation, Shun Zongdao's injuries were quite serious. Therefore, Shun Zongdao's battle strength was greatly reduced. They had to deal with him. Naturally, it wasn't that difficult. Moreover, there were many restrictions in the forest, and they were all activated by Lin Feng. They all began to attack Shun Zongdao. Therefore, Shun Zongdao's situation wasn't good. Lin Feng's dozens of powerful magic treasures released terrifying power, in addition to Xuan Nu's attacks. Therefore, Shun Zongdao was surrounded by danger. Lin Feng found an opportunity. He silently appeared behind Shun Zongdao. Then, he punched towards Shun Zongdao's back. A muffled sound of collision suddenly rang out. Shun Zongdao was sent flying by Lin Feng's punch. In midair, he spat out a mouthful of blood. He sent a sky immortal cultivator flying with a punch. This feeling, not bad. At this moment, Xue Nu also showed her might and directly froze Shen Zongdao. Break! Shen Zongdao roared. He channeled his magic power and broke the layer of ice that sealed his body. However, at this moment, Lin Feng flew over. Lin Feng used the 8 godly abstraction seals. Dense runes flew out and imprinted themselves on Shen Zongdao's body. They directly sealed Shen Zongdao. Lin Feng's 8 divine seals was a supreme divine ability passed down from the celestial master path. The power of this supreme divine ability was extremely terrifying, and Lin Feng had tested it repeatedly. Even though Shen Zongdao was a heavenly immortal expert, but after being sealed by Lin Feng's 8 god sealing seals, he was unable to break free. He still couldn't break Lin Feng's 8 god forbidding seals. After struggling a few times, even the divine sect Dao ended in failure. Therefore, Shen Zongdao knew that he really couldn't break free from Lin Feng's seal. No, this was impossible. How could I have been sealed by a young human cultivator? Shen Zongdao roared. He couldn't accept what had happened. But what was done could not be undone. Lin Feng looked at Shen Zongdao indifferently and said, Shen Zongdao, although you are a celestial immortal expert, you are too arrogant. Don't look down on the world. Brat, we can negotiate. I can agree to any condition you have. Shen Zongdao shouted. He could already feel the dense killing intent from Lin Feng. Shen Zongdao didn't want to die. Therefore, he wanted to negotiate. Lin Feng sneered and said, Do you think I will still believe you now? My father is the divine, heavenly king, a true immortal expert. If you dare to kill me, my father won't let you off. Think about it. How terrifying would it be to bear the wrath of a true immortal? I believe that in this world, no one would be willing to bear the wrath of a true immortal, right? If we negotiate, the situation will be different. This is something that will benefit both of us. Shen Zongdao brought up his father, the divine heavenly king. As a true immortal expert, the divine heavenly king's deterrence was indeed powerful. However, so what if that was the case? Lin Feng was still fearless. Do you know who killed Shen Yansheng? Lin Feng looked at Shen Zongdao, then revealed a devilish smile. Although Shen Zongdao had always been guarding the city, he had heard the news of Shen Yansheng's death. Shen Zongdao didn't know much about Shen Yansheng's death. The only thing he knew was that Shen Yansheng was killed by a young human cultivator. As for other news, he didn't know much. Now that he heard Lin Feng's words, Shen Zongdao's eyes widened. He cried out in shock. It's you? That's right, it's me. Killing one is still killing. Killing two is still killing. Lin Feng sneered, then grabbed Shen Zongdao's forehead with his right hand. Next, Lin Feng used the great soul-searching technique. Shen Zongdao roared loudly. Don't even think about searching my soul. I'd rather burn my own soul than let you search it. The moment Shen Zongdao finished speaking, his divine soul actually started to burn. Lin Feng sneered and said, Shen Zongdao, there's no need for you to resist. No matter how you resist, your fate is already sealed. No one can change your fate. After Lin Feng said that, a strand of destiny power entered Shen Zongdao's soul. It was extinguished in an instant. Lin Feng's soul-searching technique started to search Shen Zongdao's soul. Shen Zongdao had a lot of memories. Lin Feng was not interested in looking at ordinary memories. He only looked at some of the more important memories. For example, some of the family's ancient secrets. Another example, it was a sacred immortal scripture passed down by his clan. The Shen Zongdao clan was considered a royal clan within the heavenly human tribe. A force of this level was already powerful enough. And through Shen Zongdao's memories, Lin Feng found out. His main bloodline was also extremely powerful in the heaven realm and in the undying realm. His father was the strongest person with the cultivation of true immortal realm. Unfathomable. Lin Feng found a lot of important information from Shen Zongdao's soul memories. Of course, the most important information was the cultivation method of the sacred immortal scripture. After Lin Feng finished the soul-searching technique, Shen Zongdao roared with hatred. "You dare to use the soul-searching technique on me. Brat, you will die a horrible death. My father will not let you off. And Snow Lady, you bitch, your clan has already been wiped out. It's great that you died. You bitch will soon follow in their footsteps. Die." Snow Lady's beautiful eyes revealed a dense killing intent. She slapped Shen Zongdao's head. Bang! Shen Zongdao's head exploded. Shen Zongdao. He died on the spot. Clearly, Shen Zongdao mentioned Snow Lady's painful memories. This also angered Snow Lady. Therefore, Snow Lady killed mercilessly. Lin Feng could not help but click his tongue. This was the first time he saw Snow Lady so angry. "Don't get angry over this kind of person. It's not worth it," Lin Feng said. Snow Lady nodded, then walked into the distance as if she wanted to be alone for a while. Lin Feng did not chase after her. He took out a cluster of heavenly flames and burned Shen Zongdao's body to ashes. Only a ball of heavenly immortal's origin was left. Lin Feng kept that ball of heavenly immortal's origin. Chapter 4491. Lin Feng imprinted the divine immortal scripture into the jade tube. Then he prepared to give it to Xue Nu. However, Xue Nu seemed to be in low spirits. So, Lin Feng didn't disturb Xue Nu for now. After Xue Nu recovered a bit, then he gave it to Xue Nu. The cultivators outside naturally didn't know about Shen Zongdao's death. However, there was one place that knew. That was the divine heavenly palace. The divine heavenly palace was the gathering place of the Shun family. It was located in the southeast of the heavenly court. In that area, the divine heavenly palace floated in the clouds. Everywhere, there were cultivators moving about. It was extremely lively. It was a flourishing scene. The divine heavenly king usually cultivated in the divine heavenly palace. He didn't go to the military camp. Only when he encountered some important matters, such as eliminating the sinner's blood descendants. Only then would the divine heavenly king come out. For example, the current situation was like this. The divine heavenly king was cultivating in seclusion. Without the divine heavenly king's order, no one dared to disturb him. Even the divine heavenly king's son. No one dared to disturb him. But today, the divine heavenly lamp palace's grand elder, Shun Xiaoquan, had a serious expression as he arrived outside the palace where the divine heavenly king was cultivating. Shun Xiaoquan was also a celestial race cultivator. However, he wasn't a direct descendant. He belonged to a side branch of the Shun family. However, Shun Xiaoquan's cultivation was extremely high. He was an earth immortal expert, so he was able to obtain the position of Grand Elder of the Divine Heavenly Lamp Palace. Grand Elder Shin, Master is in seclusion. Please stop. The guard commander said after seeing Shun Xiaoquan. The guard commander was called Yin Yihan. He was thin, but his eyes were extremely spirited. Even the Shun family didn't know how strong Yin Yihan's cultivation was. The only thing they knew was that the divine heavenly king trusted Yin Yihan. Yin Yihan could represent the divine heavenly king many times. Shun Xiaoquan was a smooth and slick person. He was very popular in the divine heavenly palace. After seeing Yin Yihan, Shun Xiaoquan hurriedly said, "Guard Commander Yin, something big has happened. I must see the divine heavenly king." if Shun Xiaoquan called himself elder in front of others. However, in front of Yin Yihan, he didn't dare to be arrogant. Therefore, he used I to refer to himself. What happened? Yin Yihan asked. Shun Xiaoquan whispered, Shun Zongdao has fallen. Hearing this, Yin Yihan's expression changed slightly. Although Shun Zongdao did not break through to the quasi-true immortal realm. However, the divine heavenly king had always liked his son, Shun Zongdao. Moreover, Shun Zongdao had broken through to the quasi-true immortal realm. It was only a matter of time. Now, Shun Zongdao had actually fallen. This was no small matter. Yin Yihan seemed to have already seen a bloody storm coming. He took a deep breath and said, Elder, please wait outside for a moment. I'll go in and report. All right. Shun Xiaoquan nodded. Yin Yihan then entered the main hall. Not long after, Yin Yihan walked out. Elder, please follow me. Yin Yihan said. Shun Xiaoquan nodded and followed Yin Yihan into the hall. After entering the main hall, Shun Xiaoquan secretly raised his head and looked inside. He saw a cultivator standing in the depths of the hall. The cultivator's back was facing him and Yin Yihan, and his hands were behind his back. It was a burly cultivator, even if he could only see the person's back. Shun Xiaoquan also felt the pressure. I've heard about Zongdao from Yihan. Did the primordial spirit lamp record the scene of Zongdao's death? Divine Heavenly King asked, without turning around. No. I think there must be someone with great providence in that area. His providence is too strong, so his providence is hidden from the heavens. That's why the primordial spirit lamp didn't record the scene of Zongdao's death. Shun Xiaoquan hurriedly said. I'll go take a look at Di Wudao. The mirror of future might be able to make some deductions. Divine Heavenly King said. Then, Divine Heavenly King disappeared. Not long after, Di Wudao, who was cultivating in seclusion, opened his eyes. I didn't expect Divine Heavenly King to grace me with your presence. I apologize for not going out to meet you. May I know the reason for your visit? The void trembled slightly. Divine Heavenly King stepped out of the void. He was an extremely dignified old man with a terrifying aura. He looked at Di Wudao and said, Your Highness, you can actually sense my aura. It seems like Your Highness has already cultivated to the level where I can enter the void. Your Highness, you're not far from breaking through to the true immortal realm. Di Wudao sighed. How can breaking through to the true immortal realm be so easy? I hope everything will go smoothly. Although he said that breaking through was not easy, in reality, Di Wudao's expression was filled with confidence. He believed that he could break through. Divine Heavenly King did not have the time to chat with Di Wudao. He directly said, Your Highness, I'm here to ask for a favor. Oh, what is it? Di Wudao asked without batting an eyelid. Divine Heavenly King said, My 7 sons, Zongdao, has been killed. However, the primordial spirit lamp did not record any scene of the incident. It seems like there's someone with great providence in that area. That's why it's hidden from the heavens. I would like to ask the Mirror of Future to help me deduce who killed Zongdao. Di Wudao could not help but be shocked. He knew Shun Zongdao's strength well. Shun Zongdao was a heavenly immortal. Furthermore, Shun Zongdao had always been a cautious person. Whenever he went out, he would bring a large group of cultivators with him. To kill Shun Zongdao, one would need at least a quasi-true immortal expert. Currently, Shun Zongdao was guarding the northwest region of the Xin domain. There should not be any particularly powerful cultivators in that region. Even if there were cultivators who could kill Shun Zongdao, those cultivators would not dare to attack him. After all, Divine Heavenly King and the Divine Army were not the only ones standing behind Shun Zongdao. there was also the entire heavenly court. Who would be so fearless as to kill Shen Zongdao? Di Wudao felt that there was something fishy about this matter. That's easy. Heavenly King, please wait for a moment, Di Wudao said. Then he looked at the mirror of future not far away and said, Mirror of future, help me deduce who killed Shen Zongdao. No problem. I'm happy to serve divine heavenly king, Mirror of Future said. Next, many ripples appeared on the Mirror of Future's surface. The Mirror of Future was trying to deduce what had happened. An hour later, the ripples on the Mirror of Future's surface gradually disappeared. A clear image appeared on the Mirror of Future's surface. Di Wudao and divine heavenly king both looked at the image in the Mirror of Future. Chapter 44:92. It was a scene of a great battle in the forest. 3 blurry figures, many treasures, powerful formations, and restrictions were displayed one by one. However, only Shen Zongdao could see the 3 of them clearly. As for the other 2, he could only see that they were a man and a woman. However, he had no way of knowing. This was because Lin Feng's luck was too strong. It blocked all heavenly secrets and senses. Therefore, even the Mirror of Future could not deduce Lin Feng's appearance. They used formations and restrictions to kill Zongdao. Who is that male cultivator? His mastery of formations is actually so profound. The divine, heavenly king's expression was extremely ugly. Di Wudao's gaze was fixed on the 5 stone swords. His eyes, he could no longer move them away. Stone swords. He had already collected 9 of them. Di Wudao's rise had a lot to do with the 9 stone swords. Di Wudao also wanted to collect all 36 stone swords. However, it was not an easy task. It was not something that Di Wudao could collect just because he wanted to. He needed luck. 5 stone swords. Di Wudao's eyes were filled with greed. He was also curious about the identity of the blurry figure in the image. This was because when Di Wudao saw the 5 stone swords, he already had the intention to kill that figure. 5 stone swords, what kind of concept was that? If he could snatch the 5 stone swords, then he would have 14 stone swords. He would also be able to comprehend the secrets of the other 5 stone swords. Thinking of this, Di Wudao felt extremely excited. Di Wudao could not wait to rush over and kill that figure in the image, then snatch the 5 stone swords. Is there no way to make the image clearer? Di Wudao asked. It's not that there is no way to make the image clearer, but as the saying goes, you lose as much as you gain. If you want to make the image clearer, you have to pay a huge price. What price? The divine heavenly king frowned slightly and asked. Immortal essence, the Mirror of Future said, if divine heavenly king is willing to take out an immortal source, I can borrow the power of the immortal source to break through the concealment of fate. At that time, we will be able to clearly see who the 2 people concealed by fate are. Of course, the immortal quintessence mentioned by the Mirror of Future was not the pseudo-immortal quintessence. The immortal essence it spoke of was the true immortal essence. The preciousness of a true immortal's essence was self-evident. Not a single true immortal would take out their true immortal essence, because the damage to the body was too great. No one would do such a stupid thing. Divine Heavenly King said, a few years ago, I obtained an immortal origin in a secret place. Originally, I planned to refine it, but thinking that one day in the future, I might need it somewhere else. So I didn't refine it. Now, it seems that my decision back then was quite foresight. The divine heavenly king flicked his finger. A ball of light flew out. There seemed to be an origin sealed within the ball of light. It was an origin. It should be the immortal quintessence that the divine heavenly king had mentioned. Can this immortal source energy help you? Divine heavenly king looked at the Mirror of Future and asked. The mirror of future laughed, strangely. Of course. The divine heavenly king flicked his finger, and the immortal origin flew toward the mirror of future. The immortal origin was devoured by the mirror of future. At this moment, the scene in the mirror of future was gradually fading away. Finally, Lin Feng and the Snow Lady appeared. There are legends of the Snow Lady in the mountains of the northwestern region of the Sin realm. This woman should be the Snow Lady. The divine heavenly king's expression was extremely gloomy. He then looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Who is this child?" In reality, the divine heavenly king's army was looking for Lin Feng. Although the divine heavenly king was in seclusion, he had heard about the bounty on Lin Feng. However, the divine heavenly king had never seen Lin Feng in person. "It's him." Di Wudao narrowed his eyes. The person in the scene. It was actually Lin Feng. Di Wudao recognized Lin Feng at a glance. "I really didn't expect this kid to come to the Sin realm," the mirror of future said. Di Wudao said, "He's indeed very active. If we let him do as he pleases, he'll definitely cause a lot of trouble." The divine heavenly king was confused. He asked, "Who is this child?" Di Wudao said, "Descendant of sinners' blood, Lin Baitian's son, Lin Feng." The divine heavenly king's expression changed when he heard the name Lin Baitian. He said solemnly, "I didn't expect this child to be so powerful at such a young age. However, he's still lacking compared to his father, Lin Baitian." Di Wudao said, "There's a reason why Lin Baitian is so young and powerful. He went to that world where time reversed and grew up there. I've always wanted to know where the entrance to that world is, but I've never been able to find it." The divine heavenly king was shocked. "That world is real." Di Wudao nodded and said, "Of course. I wonder if Lin Feng's bloodline contains any memories of that world. We need to capture him alive and search his bloodline memories. It'll be even better if his bloodline contains any information about that world. If he doesn't, it's fine. We'll use him as a hostage and spread the news. Let's see if Lin Baitian will show himself." Di Wudao's face was filled with killing intent. The divine heavenly king said, "I won't disturb your highness any longer. I'll take my leave first." The divine heavenly king then retracted his body and vanished. Di Wudao sneered. "That old fox must be tempted after finding out about Lin Feng's true identity. He's probably sending people to capture Lin Feng now. Why did your highness tell him about Lin Feng's identity?" The mirror of future asked. "My position as the crown prince isn't stable. My brothers have always wanted to replace me. Naturally, I had to rope in an expert like the divine heavenly king." Di Wudao said. The mirror of future said, "Your highness is quite considerate." Di Wudao shouted. "Men, the guard commander walked in and knelt on the ground. He waited for Di Wudao's orders. Inform the 8-level palace and have them capture Lin Feng alive. Bring Lin Feng to me as soon as possible." "Yes, your highness." The guard commander quickly left. Chapter 4493. Lin Feng wasn't very clear about what was going on in the outside world. Lin Feng also didn't know that he had been targeted by the divine heavenly king and Di Wudao. However, Lin Feng had experienced too many things over the years, so he had always been more cautious. Killing Shen Zongdao in this forest wasn't known to outsiders. However, some people should have seen how Shen Zongdao chased him to this place. After all, there might be cultivators looking for opportunities in the surrounding forest. Even if no cultivators knew, some powerful beasts should have seen it. Those powerful beasts had already developed spiritual awareness. People like Shen Zongdao, who came from large factions, often had origin spirit lamps. Therefore, Lin Feng guessed that Shinzongdao's people already knew about Shinzongdao's death. The divine heavenly king must have also known that his son was killed. The divine heavenly king must have been furious. With the divine army's methods, it wasn't difficult to find clues. Therefore, Lin Feng and Xue Nu left that area together. They changed their direction and flew towards the north. As they went deeper, the temperature became lower and lower. Occasionally, they could see some mountain villages in the forest. Lin Feng and Xue Nu once stayed in a mountain village. They were shocked to find that mountain village actually worshipped a totem. It was a wolf god totem. The villagers would worship it every day. Totem culture. This was a culture from the early days of the epoch, when the various races worshipped the totem. Towns hadn't been formed yet. At that time, the beings that crossed epochs were also at their strongest. Later, towns appeared, especially when formations were popularized. A large number of residents moved into the cities and set up formations to fight against the beings that crossed epochs. The casualties of the beings that crossed epochs were also extremely heavy. Later, they gradually stopped appearing. As time passed, those ancient ancestors no longer believed in totems. They believed in their own strength. The totem culture gradually disappeared. However, in the mountain village near the extreme north of the Undying Realm, the totem culture was preserved. It was extremely cold here, and it often snowed heavily. Lin Feng and Xue Nu didn't stay in the village for too long. After resting for a night, they left and continued north. This was because the Snow Maiden had told Lin Feng that the secret realm they were going to was in the extreme north. Lin Feng estimated that they had been flying for about half a month. It would be difficult for the divine heavenly king's men to find any clues about him and the Snow Lady. Thus, Lin Feng decided to find a place to go into seclusion. This was because Lin Feng wanted to refine Shinzongdao's heavenly immortal source. That's the quintessence of a heavenly immortal. I wonder how many levels of cultivation it can raise. The current Lin Feng, he was already at the 7th heavenly layer of the Saint Emperor realm. Lin Feng was already very close to breaking through to the Emperor Lord realm. Lin Feng opened up a cave residence. He and the Snow Maiden entered the cave abode. The Snow Maiden sat down with her legs crossed and began to study the Holy Immortal Sutra. During this period of time, Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden were both studying the Holy Immortal Sutra. Furthermore, the two of them would also communicate with each other. Everyone benefited greatly from it. Lin Feng took out Shinzongdao's heavenly immortal source. The quintessence of a heavenly immortal could raise his cultivation by a few levels. Lin Feng wasn't sure. Previously, when Lin Feng refined the earth immortal source, his cultivation had increased by 4 levels, and the effect of the heavenly immortal source would obviously be better. However, there was one thing that was different. When Lin Feng refined the earth immortal source, his cultivation level was lower than now, and as his cultivation level increased, it would become more and more difficult to break through. Therefore, he couldn't use the situation when refining the earth immortal source to predict the situation when refining the heavenly immortal source. Lin Feng swallowed Shen Zongdao's heavenly immortal source and began to circulate the immemorial dragonesque elephant art. As the immemorial dragonesque elephant art circulated, the heavenly immortal source was constantly being broken down. Then the heavenly immortal source turned into incomparably pure energy. Those energies, they were all absorbed by Lin Feng. Lin Feng's cultivation level, it began to rise steadily. 8th heavenly layer of the Saint Emperor realm. 9th heavenly layer of the Saint Emperor realm. 10th heavenly layer of the Saint Emperor realm. The effect of the heavenly immortal source was too shocking. Lin Feng's cultivation level had broken through to the 10th heaven of the Holy Emperor realm, but there was still a lot of heavenly immortal source in his body. This made Lin Feng very surprised. Originally, Lin Feng didn't expect the effect of the heavenly immortal source to be so powerful. Can I break through to the Emperor Lord realm? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He continued to refine the heavenly immortal source. As the heavenly immortal source was refined, Lin Feng's cultivation level was still rising. His cultivation level quickly broke through from the early 10th heaven of the Holy Emperor realm to the peak 10th heaven of the Holy Emperor realm. Then he broke through to the boundary Emperor Lord realm. Lin Feng was extremely close to the Emperor Lord realm, but Lin Feng discovered that the remaining heavenly immortal source was no longer enough for him to complete the breakthrough. Lin Feng also knew that he had accumulated a lot of resources. If he wanted to break through to the Emperor Lord realm, it was definitely an extremely difficult thing. He needed a relatively large opportunity. Only then could he break through to the Emperor Lord realm. Snow, spirit bone, fire. Lin Feng opened his eyes and took a deep breath. If he could obtain the snow, spirit bone, fire, Lin Feng felt that breaking through to the Emperor Lord realm shouldn't be a problem. The Snow Maiden was still cultivating. Lin Feng didn't disturb her. When the Snow Maiden woke up, Lin Feng smiled and said, "It seems that you have a deeper understanding of the Divine Immortal Sutra. Fairy?" The Snow Maiden smiled and nodded. Then she said, "Your cultivation level seems to have improved quite a bit." Lin Feng nodded and continued, "You look so beautiful when you smile. You should smile more." After hearing Lin Feng's words, the Snow Maiden's pretty face turned slightly red. The Snow Maiden's cultivation level was extremely high, but in reality, the Snow Maiden was extremely pure. She had nothing to do with the outside world. She had very little contact with it. This was the main reason why the Snow Maiden was so pure. Lin Feng knew something tragic must have happened to the Snow Maiden, but Lin Feng didn't ask about it. He didn't want to mention the Snow Maiden's sad past. After the two of them came out of seclusion, they continued their journey. They flew all the way to the far north. Half a month later, they saw the extreme north in the distance. Above the land of the extreme north, there was a distorted void, countless destructive laws. They fell from the sky. They floated in the void. In many places, there were even shattered space-time. The laws of the undying realm were so powerful that the void above the extreme north was damaged so severely. This made Lin Feng extremely shocked. He didn't even dare to believe his eyes. The extreme north is a place even more terrifying than the land of death, the Snow Maiden said. If it's just because of these shattered space-time, the danger shouldn't be as high as you say, right? Lin Feng said. The Snow Maiden said, "The extreme north is naturally not that simple. It's said that the shattered space-time in the extreme north is connected to the other world. Occasionally, some creatures from the other world will come to the undying realm from those shattered space-time." After hearing the Snow Maiden's words, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Chapter 4494. Foreign life forms were all terrifying and evil. Any foreign life form that could appear in the undying realm was definitely an unimaginable existence. The Snow Lady said, "There's no need to be surprised. Every few years, foreign life forms would appear. Then, when they appear, they would usually cause a huge massacre. However, there are simply too few of them. In the end, those foreign life forms were captured by the Heavenly Court." Lin Feng couldn't help but ask, why did the Heavenly Court capture them? Just kill them. The Snow Lady shook her head. "I don't know. The current Heavenly Emperor is a sinister person. many of the things he does are incomprehensible. For example, capturing these terrifying foreign life forms. I don't know what he's doing in the dark. Lin Feng felt that this matter wasn't simple. Lin Feng was actually filled with reverence towards the Heavenly Emperor. The current Heavenly Emperor was definitely a ruthless character. He even dared to challenge the heavenly realm. From this, one could see how powerful he was. Of course, the main reason was because he had a few sworn brothers. Those few sworn brothers, which one of them wasn't an expert that could intimidate a region. They were existences that even the heavenly realm was wary of. Lin Feng and the Snow Lady entered the extreme north. They were extremely careful. The extreme north was extremely dangerous. They had to be careful. Otherwise, it was very likely that they would die here. Lin Feng knew this. Hence, Lin Feng was always on high alert. Roar. A deafening roar shook the heavens. The ground cracked open, and a huge lizard emerged from the ground. It was an icy plains giant lizard. Its body was 100 meters long. After it charged out, its huge tail viciously whipped toward Lin Feng and the Snow Lady. The two of them hurriedly dodged the attack. This is a social life form. The icy plains giant lizard king is especially terrifying. There's no need to fight with this icy plains giant lizard. Let's go, the Snow Lady said, as she quickly rushed into the depths. It was just as the Snow Lady said. There was no need for them to engage in a battle with the giant lizards here. This was because the giant lizards would most likely emerge from the ground as soon as a battle broke out. When that happened, it would be extremely disadvantageous for Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden. There were very few creatures in the extreme north, but all of the creatures that appeared here were extremely terrifying. No one dared to underestimate those terrifying creatures. Thankfully, Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden were both powerful cultivators, so they didn't perish under the onslaught of the ferocious beasts. They had already been in the extreme north for 10 days, but they still hadn't reached that area. During these 10 days, Lin Feng and the Snow Lady didn't even see a single person. The far north was too dangerous. No one was willing to come here. Unless the other party clearly knew where the opportunity was, only then would they be able to come to the extreme north. Otherwise, they would definitely not come here. Large amounts of engulfing power surged out of the shattered space from time to time. Lin Feng and the Snow Lady were almost engulfed by the shattered space several times. Coupled with the power of the law of destruction, this place was simply too dangerous. On this day, Lin Feng discovered that a bronze mirror in the space of time was emitting a weak ripple. Lin Feng took out the bronze mirror that was emitting a weak ripple. Is this Macho's bronze mirror? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. When Lin Feng was young, Lin Feng was really young back then. He was only in his teens. During one of his training trips, he went to Macho's cave abode. Even though many years had passed, Lin Feng still remembered this incident. Lin Feng had obtained the bronze mirror from Macho's cave abode. Macho was a peerless beauty. The man she loved deeply had gone out. She had been waiting for the man she loved to return, but he never came. Grass grows under the Dragon Creek. Crows clamor over the city. Who was in the city? Pomegranates were planted in the corners of the city. Black hair tied to 5 horses, golden hair tied to 2 oxen. White fish steered a lotus boat, swimming 10 miles at night. No one knew when he returned, sneaking into the Agarwood Inn. The gauze bed leaned on the jasper. The waning moon hooked the curtains. Today the hibiscus flowers fall. Tomorrow the paulownia trees fall. How can I be called Macho if I fail to do business? This was a poem Macho had written when she missed her lover. Perhaps because she had waited for too long, Macho wondered if her lover no longer loved her. Thus, she never returned. Lin Feng vaguely remembered that the man was called Luo Xinxiu. Even when Macho died, he never appeared, with longing, sorrow, and reluctance. Just like that, Macho died all alone. Now that the bronze mirror was behaving strangely, he didn't know what had caused the bronze mirror to behave strangely. Lin Feng carefully studied the bronze mirror, but he couldn't find anything special about it. Is the bronze mirror very special? The Snow Maiden asked. Lin Feng said, I obtained it in my early years, bearing the weight of a sad love. The Snow Maiden said, when you love, it's hot, but when you lose, it's painful. If that's the case, then it's better not to love at all. Lin Feng rubbed his nose. He really couldn't answer the Snow Maiden's question. Could he persuade the Snow Maiden to fall in love with him? Would he be slapped to death by the Snow Maiden? Could he tell the Snow Maiden that she was right? However, Lin Feng felt that the Snow Maiden wasn't right. It didn't matter if it lasted forever. It only cared about having it once. Many times, the environment changed a person's situation. Therefore, that was why there was a saying that people in the pugilistic world couldn't help themselves. The bronze mirror's fluctuation quickly disappeared, causing Lin Feng to feel a little apprehensive. The bronze mirror's fluctuation came suddenly and disappeared quickly. He didn't know what went wrong. Lin Feng placed the bronze mirror back into time and space. 5 days later, Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden saw that on the ice plains of the extreme north, there was a cultivator with disheveled hair. He was pulling an ancient and mysterious stone coffin. Pulling a coffin in the ice plains. Lin Feng had seen such a scene before. In the past, in the Sky Martial Continent's ruins of God, Lin Feng had seen the ice plains coffin pulling before. At that time, Lin Feng had heard that the ice plains coffin pulling was a curse. Those who were cursed would completely lose themselves. Then, pulling the stone coffin, they continued to move forward in the ice plains. They suffered endless pain. They would never wake up again. They didn't know who they were. No one knew who had cursed them. After the ruins of God, Lin Feng saw the ice plains coffin pulling again. Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden went around the ice plains coffin pulling man and quickly flew deeper into the ice plains. Before leaving, Lin Feng turned around and looked at the ice plains coffin pulling man. It was a resolute face with a full beard. His eyes were very cloudy. After seeing this man, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. This man, why did he give him a sense of déjà vu? It's him. Chapter 44, 95. Lin Feng did not expect to see him here again. This man was none other than him. It was the coffin carrier that he had seen in the ruins of God. Now, he had actually come to the extreme north of the undying realm. Could it be? He was pulling the ancient coffin. He had crossed the starry sky world. Had he come to the undying realm? At this moment, Lin Feng's heart was very unsettled. Lin Feng's heart. He was filled with deep shock and many doubts. Seeing Lin Feng stop, the Snow Lady asked curiously, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Lin Feng said, "I saw him when I was in the 9 States Great World. The Ice Plains coffin carrier is a curse. The cursed person will pull the ancient coffin and travel aimlessly in the ice plains. He should be the cultivator, who was cursed. However, I did not expect to see him again after so many years when I came to the undying realm." The Snow Lady frowned slightly and said, "There is indeed something strange about this. I heard that the cursed person would be in a certain area and would not be able to leave that area. However, he was able to come to the undying realm from the 9 States Great World. It sounds unbelievable, but perhaps the curses in the world are not the same. There will always be some curses that we do not understand. These curses are mysterious and unfathomable, but they are also very powerful. Yes, Lin Feng nodded. Now he could only blame it all on the unknown and mysterious curses. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to explain the current situation. He was still pulling the ancient coffin, just like he had been doing since ancient times. Lin Feng looked at him in a deep and meaningful way, and then left with the Snow Woman. Half a month later, Lin Feng saw that there were many ancient ruins in the plains. That area was full of broken walls and ruins. It seemed to be a temple. However, it was severely damaged now. The secret realm that we are going to is under the temple. The temple is connected to an underground world. We need to enter the underground world first. The Snow Lady said, "No problem." Lin Feng nodded. He and the Snow Maiden entered the ruins. It could be seen that in the past, this place was very prosperous, but now it was already ruined beyond recognition. No one knew what had happened back then, but this powerful and ancient force had been completely destroyed. Time could erase everything. Even the strongest forces could be destroyed by the power of time. I've heard that the land of extreme north was once a holy land for cultivation. However, after several great battles, the land of extreme north was destroyed, turning into the land of death it is now. Moreover, even the void of the land of extreme north was destroyed. Some places are connected to foreign worlds, so the land of extreme north is no longer possible to recover. The Snow Lady said, "These ruins are so huge, and there are so many temples. It seems like the faction that was here in the past was also an unimaginable faction." Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. This was similar to the decline of the Sovereign Emperor clan, the three sovereigns, 5 emperors, Pangu, Niwa, and other orthodoxies. In this world, how could there be any power that could last forever? Even though the celestial race and the immortal race were incomparably powerful right now, the celestial race was still very powerful. However, it was hard to say what would happen in the future. Perhaps, would they also be buried by the power of time? Anything was possible. Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden flew toward the depths of the ruins. After flying for an entire day, they finally arrived at the depths of the ruins. In the depths of the ruins, there was a huge crack. Black gas was occasionally spewing out from the crack. That black gas was very terrifying. It contained an unimaginably cold power. Therefore, they had to be careful when dealing with that black gas. Or else, they might suffer because of it. Lin Feng and the Snow Woman entered the gigantic fissure. They quickly flew downward. The crack was very special. The gap at the top was relatively large. However, as they continued to descend, the crack continued to shrink. Therefore, the deeper they went, the narrower the crack became. About 2 hours later, Lin Feng saw a deep tunnel appear at the bottom of the crack. The wind whistled in that tunnel, and they couldn't see the end of it. The Snow Maiden said, "After passing through that tunnel, we can enter the underground world." Okay, Lin Feng nodded. He entered the tunnel with the Snow Maiden. Then, the two of them began to fly downward. An hour later, they flew out of the tunnel. Then, they landed on the ground. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, densely packed flying swords slashed toward them. There were more than 100 flying swords, and their power was extremely shocking. They wanted to kill Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden. Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden's expressions suddenly turned cold. It seemed like someone had ambushed them here. The two of them were also very powerful people. They traveled through the void and dodged the flying swords' attacks. Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden appeared 100 meters away. At this moment, the void trembled slightly. More than 100 people walked out of the void. "And not bad. You actually managed to dodge our attacks." The leader was a young master in a brocade robe. He looked at Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden in surprise. When he saw the Snow Maiden, He raised his eyebrows slightly. A thoughtful expression appeared on his face. "Who are you? How dare you ambush us? Are you tired of living?" Lin Feng sneered. Hearing Lin Feng's words, the group was stunned. Then, the cultivators came to their senses. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. Lin Feng and the Snow Maiden only had 2 people on their side. On their side, there were more than 100 cultivators. Lin Feng dared to say, "Are you tired of living?" to them. Was he looking down on them? Was he provoking them? The cultivators naturally wanted to kill Lin Feng. "Brat, do you know who our young master is?" "Our young master is the Heavenly Emperor's nephew, Dugu Li. If you know what's good for you, hand over all your treasures, and we can spare your lives. Otherwise, you'll die a horrible death." A cultivator said coldly, "Dugu Li, the Heavenly Emperor's nephew?" Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. He suddenly thought of Dugu Chen, who he had killed earlier. Dugu Chen seemed to have said that he was the Heavenly Emperor's nephew. Could he be Dugu Li's brother? However, compared to Dugu Li, that Dugu Chen was worlds apart. After all, even the most powerful clans didn't have everyone powerful. Weak clans didn't necessarily have no peerless powerhouses. This cultivator wanted Lin Feng to hand over his treasures. Of course, Lin Feng wouldn't do such a thing. If he really handed over his treasures, would these people let him and the Snow Maiden go? Definitely not. Moreover, Lin Feng had always been a strong-willed person. This group of people had ambushed him and the Snow Maiden to kill them and steal their treasures. Lin Feng already wanted to kill them. Chapter 44:96. "Kid, didn't you hear me? Hand over the treasures on your bodies. If you dare to delay any longer, I'll kill you both." The cultivator's expression darkened when he saw that Lin Feng and Snow Lady didn't move. His face darkened, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. Snow Lady's cultivation was very strong, and she hid her true cultivation level. That was why the cultivator couldn't sense her cultivation level. If he knew that Snow Lady was a sky immortal, he wouldn't have dared to be so arrogant in front of her. "Everywhere I go, I meet arrogant people who don't know how to spell the word death." Lin Feng mocked. The cultivator who spoke was called Zhang Mingyan. He had joined the Dugu family a long time ago. He had cultivated for 540,000 years, and he was very powerful. That was why he didn't take Lin Feng and Snow Lady seriously. Even though Lin Feng and the Snow Girl had dodged the attack, in the eyes of the crowd, Lin Feng and the Snow Girl were only a bit stronger than the others. Their other abilities weren't that strong. However, Lin Feng and Snow Lady might have some powerful treasures on them. That was why they were able to enter the extreme north. "I want this woman. As for this kid, I'll kill him," Dugu Li said coldly. His eyes were fixed on Snow Lady the entire time. His gaze was very evil. The Snow Lady's physique was the icy snow physique. This type of physique was extremely rare. Furthermore, it was a supreme grade dual cultivation constitution. Lin Feng had discovered it long ago. However, Lin Feng wouldn't lie in front of Snow Lady. Seeing the evil gaze in Dugu Li's eyes, Lin Feng guessed that Dugu Li might have discovered Snow Lady's special constitution. That was why Dugu Li had such an evil gaze. Snow Lady's gaze turned cold. She said, "These people deserve to die." Lin Feng smiled and said, "I'll deal with them. As a peerless beauty, I have to maintain my elegance and beauty." The Snow Maiden blushed slightly as Lin Feng teased her from time to time. He often teased the Snow Maidens until they blushed. This made the Snow Maidens feel rather helpless at times. However, the Snow Lady felt that, in the depths of her heart, she seemed to like being teased by Lin Feng. "Brat, die." At this moment, Zhang Mingyan snorted coldly and leaped out. Then, he sent a palm strike towards Lin Feng. After this guy's aura was released, Lin Feng roughly sensed this guy's realm. Zhang Mingyan should be a peak saint emperor. Even in the undying realm, this realm could be considered a tyrant. But in front of Lin Feng, they were unable to withstand a single blow. Lin Feng reached out his right hand and tapped gently in the air. In an instant, a finger condensed from energy shot towards Zhang Mingyan. After feeling the pressure of the energy finger, Zhang Mingyan felt his soul tremble. Impossible! Zhang Mingyan cried out in disbelief. He couldn't believe his eyes. The main reason was that Lin Feng was too young. Lin Feng was only a little over 100 years old, although Zhang Mingyan couldn't sense Lin Feng's specific realm. But even if Lin Feng was talented, Lin Feng was still too young, even if he could cultivate to the Saint Emperor realm. But presumably, his realm wouldn't be too high. But after Lin Feng attacked, Zhang Mingyan realized how wrong he was. Lin Feng was simply too powerful. He was so powerful that he couldn't fight against him. Zhang Mingyan's expression became extremely ugly. He felt the threat of death. He wanted to dodge Lin Feng's attack, but he couldn't. Lin Feng's energy finger struck Zhang Mingyan's body. With a bang, Zhang Mingyan's body exploded, and his body and soul were destroyed. Obviously, Dugu Li and the others didn't expect things to turn out like this. They realized that they had underestimated Lin Feng's cultivation. Lin Feng was probably much stronger than they had imagined. Kid, no wonder you're so arrogant. But do you think that with just the two of you, do you think you can fight against so many of us? Dugu Li looked coldly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng said mockingly, "What, you want to surround us? Those lousy swords of yours won't be able to hurt us." Lousy swords? Hearing Lin Feng's description of their treasures, the group's expression darkened. Clearly, Lin Feng looked down on them. Those who had sided with the Dugu clan were fine. But how could Dugu Li tolerate others' mockery? "Lowly thing, who do you think you are? How dare you act cool in front of this young master?" Dugu Li looked coldly at Lin Feng, his eyes flashing with killing intent. He waved his hand and said, "Attack together and tear this kid to pieces." Actually, Dugu Li didn't lack experts on his side. There were even a few rogue immortals. However, Dugu Li was still a cautious person. He had seen Lin Feng instantly kill Zhang Mingyan. He felt that Lin Feng wasn't simple, so Dugu Li didn't dare to be careless. Over 100 cultivators attacked after receiving Dugu Li's order. Terrifying ripples surged out, and over 100 cultivators began to prepare powerful divine abilities. Soon, the divine abilities of over 100 cultivators were formed. Their divine abilities all shot towards Lin Feng. The divine abilities formed a divine ability river in midair, and then quickly flooded towards Lin Feng. "Kid, after you die, I'll vent all my anger on your woman," Dugu Li said sinisterly. This guy thought that the Snow Woman was Lin Feng's woman, and cursed. One look, and one could tell that he wasn't a good person. The Snow Woman didn't attack Dugu Li because she didn't care. In the Snow Woman's eyes, kill Dugu Li. It would dirty her hands. Not to mention that Lin Feng had already said that he would take care of these people. The Snow Woman naturally trusted Lin Feng. A bunch of clowns facing the attacks of over 100 cultivators, Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh coldly. He stepped in midair. Then a loud voice resounded between heaven and earth. "Great Tao of Destiny, let the power of destiny shine upon the world. Let the power of destiny disperse the evil." Lin Feng used the great art of destiny. The power of destiny coiled around Lin Feng's fist. Lin Feng raised his fist and punched the river of godly skills. Bang! Along with the sound of violent collisions, the divine ability river was instantly shattered by Lin Feng's punch. Then Lin Feng opened his hand and punched the air. A gigantic hand made of energy appeared. It instantly condensed and fell from the sky, attacking over 100 cultivators. The cultivators were all shocked and worked together to block Lin Feng's attack. However, they couldn't block Lin Feng's attack. Chapter 44:97. Dead. They were all dead. Seeing Lin Feng kill so many experts with one slap, Dugu Li was shocked. Dugu Li's face was filled with disbelief. Dugu Li wasn't a simple person. He had cultivated for 70,000 years. Now, he was already in the human immortal realm. Naturally, this level of cultivation was already extremely profound and powerful, but after seeing how strong Lin Feng was, Dugu Li trembled in fear. Even a human immortal realm cultivator couldn't reach Lin Feng's level. With a raise of his hand, he had killed over 100 cultivators with one slap. This battle power was so heaven-defying that it made people pale. Run. That was Dugu Li's only thought. He had to run. Otherwise, he would definitely die at Lin Feng's hands. Dugu Li didn't want to die. Whoosh. Dugu Li turned and ran. Lin Feng chased after him and said indifferently, "Didn't you say you were extremely strong before? You thought you were so high and mighty that you could take people's lives as you wished. How did you become a stray dog?" When Lin Feng finished talking, he threw a punch at Dugu Li. When he sensed Lin Feng's terrifying punch, he was shocked. Dugu Li's expression changed slightly. Lin Feng's terrifying punch. It was too powerful. Dugu Li didn't dare to be careless. He circulated his magic power and punched at Lin Feng. Dugu Li's punch was called the Heavenly Emperor Fist. It was a secret technique created by the Heavenly Emperor. Dugu Li was the Heavenly Emperor's nephew, so he had learned this technique. Bang! With a fierce collision sound, Lin Feng and Dugu Li collided. Lin Feng was unharmed. Dugu Li flew back like a kite with a broken string. His arm was broken. In the air, he spat out blood. The situation was terrible. Seeing Dugu Li's pitiful state, Lin Feng didn't feel any sympathy. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. If he and Xue Nu weren't strong enough, then when they landed, they would have been killed by Dugu Li and the others. If he and Xue Nu were killed, who would reason with them? To put it bluntly, in this world, the one with the bigger fist was the one with the right. Lin Feng charged forward and suppressed Dugu Li. "My uncle is the Heavenly Emperor. If you dare to kill me, my uncle won't let you." Dugu Li used the Heavenly Emperor to threaten Lin Feng. Lin Feng naturally wasn't afraid of Dugu Li's threat. He looked indifferently at Dugu Li and said, "So what if you're a Heavenly Emperor? Sooner or later, I will kill him. Since you are the Heavenly Emperor's nephew, you must have some Heavenly Emperor tell me the immortals." When he heard that Lin Feng wanted his celestial scriptures, Dugu Li shivered. He said, "I didn't cultivate an immortal sutra. Who are you trying to fool?" Lin Feng coldly snorted. "It seems that a seal has been placed in your mind. If that's the case, what's the point of me keeping you alive?" Just as Lin Feng was about to kill Dugu Li, Lin Feng suddenly felt a bone-chilling aura behind him. Lin Feng's expression changed. Heaven-mending technique. At that critical moment, Lin Feng used his heaven-patching technique and grabbed Dugu Li. They disappeared from their original position. The moment Lin Feng disappeared, a ghostly claw-like hand appeared in the air. That ghostly claw-like hand failed to hit Lin Feng. The next moment, an old man who was as thin as firewood appeared. The skinny old man looked like an old ghost that had crawled out of hell. The aura he emitted was so terrifying that it made Lin Feng's hair stand on end. At this moment, Lin Feng was already 100 meters away. When Dugu Li saw the old man, he cried out, "Ancestor, save me!" That old man was clearly an expert of the Dugu clan. In fact, Dugu Li and the others had been waiting for this old man to arrive. The old man hadn't arrived, but Lin Feng and Snow Lady had arrived first. Thus, Dugu Li decided to kill Lin Feng and Snow Lady. He wanted to kill Lin Feng and Snow Lady. But who would have thought that Lin Feng would be so powerful? You are a sinner's blood. The old man narrowed his eyes at Lin Feng. He had actually sensed Lin Feng's bloodline. Ever since Lin Feng had cultivated the great destiny art, very few people had been able to sense Lin Feng's bloodline. In fact, ever since Lin Feng had broken through to the Emperor realm, no one had been able to draw a portrait of him. The old man glanced at Lin Feng and immediately sensed Lin Feng's bloodline. It was truly extraordinary. Undying sinner's blood. It seems that you are a descendant of someone exiled by the Undying clan. The old man continued. He hadn't mentioned the sovereign emperor's blood, so it seemed that he hadn't sensed Lin Feng's sovereign emperor's blood. He had only sensed the undying bloodline. Lin Feng said, "Sir, you must have been a true immortal in the past, right?" The old man paused, then asked, "Why do you say that?" Lin Feng said, "I've seen a few quasi-true immortals, but they couldn't sense my bloodline." "Sir, you were able to do so, which means that your methods aren't something that ordinary quasi-true immortals can compare to. Sir, you are clearly not a true immortal. I think that you were a true immortal in the past, but your cultivation level fell later on. You should be a quasi-true immortal now, right? I wonder if my guess is right." Lin Feng said indifferently, "You are an extremely smart person." The old man said. Lin Feng said, "Thank you for the praise. Let Dugu Li go. This seat can spare your life. Or else, this seat will make you die, without a grave." The old man said. Lin Feng didn't believe the old man's words at all. Letting Dugu Li go would allow him to live. This old man was clearly trying to trick him. Lin Feng was very clear on this point. "Since you know that I'm the sinner's blood you speak of, do you think I'll let this guy go?" Lin Feng sneered. In the next moment, crack, Lin Feng snapped Dugu Li's neck. After killing Dugu Li, he took his storage ring. Lin Feng flew into the distance and said loudly, "Fairy, let's meet at the agreed place." "Kid, where do you think you're going?" The old man was furious as he chased after Lin Feng. The snow girl opened her mouth. She wanted to say that if she teamed up with Lin Feng to deal with the old man, they might be able to defeat him. However, when she thought about how the old man was a true immortal who had fallen, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. Lin Feng lured the old man away because he didn't want her to be in danger. Thinking of this, the snow girl felt a sweetness in her heart. She had been living alone for so many years, and there were always people who wanted to kill her and take her snow spirit bonfire. Chapter 4498. Lin Feng was extremely fast, so fast that even the Snow Maiden could not compare to him. The Snow Maiden was very clear about this, so when she saw Lin Feng lure Patriarch Dugu away, the Snow Maiden did not get involved in this matter, because after she got involved, when the time came, they would be in even more trouble. Lin Feng led Patriarch Dugu away alone. He would definitely be able to get rid of Patriarch Dugu smoothly. The Snow Maiden was extremely confident in Lin Feng's speed. At this moment, Lin Feng was flying quickly in front. As he flew, he cursed Patriarch Dugu, who was chasing after him. "You old thing, half of your body is about to be buried in the ground, and you still have the nerve to chase after me? Why are you so shameless? You've thrown away the face of 18 generations of your ancestors. Could it be that you're an old tortoise? Is that why you're so thick-skinned? I think you should just change your name. Just call yourself Old Tortoise Dugu. Isn't that a good name? It's refreshing and refined. Of course, I think it's not bad to call you old dog Dugu. But thinking about it, calling you an old dog is an insult to the word old dog. Lin Feng was the world's #1 sharp-tongued person. When he heard Lin Feng curse him, he was furious. Patriarch Dugu was so angry that his entire body trembled. Who would dare to curse a high and mighty existence like him? But today, Lin Feng dared to do so. Patriarch Dugu's sinister voice rang out. Kid, don't worry. I won't kill you directly, because I've taken a fancy to your body, such a young identity, and with the undying bloodline, it's really enviable. When Lin Feng heard Patriarch Dugu's words, he knew what Patriarch Dugu was up to. Patriarch Dugu was simply too old now. Lin Feng said that half of his body was buried in the ground, which was actually very appropriate. Lin Feng guessed that Patriarch Dugu should be an expert who broke out of the Godstone. The cultivators in the undying world who sealed themselves in Godstones had different realms compared to the cultivators in the mortal world who sealed themselves in Godstones. The cultivators of the mortal world who sealed themselves in the Godstones would have their cultivation levels constantly drop. However, their lifespan would not elapse. When they were reborn, they would still maintain the same cultivation level as when they broke the divine stone, but their lifespan would be depleted faster. If he spent a year like a normal person, he would lose a year of his life. However, for people like them, if they spent a year, they might lose 3 years or even 5 years of their lives. How much you gain, how much you lose. This principle would never change. However, the situation was different for the cultivators in the self-sealing divine stone of the undying realm, because the realm of the undying realm's cultivators would not drop after being sealed by the divine stone. Therefore, when the experts in the undying world came into being, their lifespan would elapse faster than the cultivators in the mortal world. Other than that, there was one more point, and that was the cultivators in the undying realm who were sealed in the God sealing stone would face a change in their realm after coming out. The first type, his realm would rise again. The second type, if his realm couldn't increase, then it would drop greatly. This was a serious problem that the cultivators in the undying realm who were sealed in the God sealing stone faced after coming out. To them, there was no such thing as staying put. This kind of situation was too normal for normal people. But to them, if they didn't advance, they would retreat. Those younger cultivators or those in the prime of their lives, their blood and chi were strong. Therefore, after breaking the divine stone, they could still continue to improve their cultivation. Their strength was getting stronger and stronger. However, for those old and weak experts, after breaking the divine stone, it would be more difficult for them to continue to break through. Of course, it wasn't that all the old and weak cultivators couldn't break through, but only a small portion of them could break through. Most of the old and weak cultivators couldn't continue to break through. An old ancestor, Dugu, belonged to the second type of cultivator. After breaking the divine stone, old ancestor Dugu wanted to break through to a new realm. However, he failed. As a result, his realm fell from the true immortal realm all the way to the current quasi-true immortal realm. If a period of time passed, he would even fall from the quasi-true immortal realm to the heavenly immortal realm. As his body became older and older, his blood and chi became more and more exhausted. His realm would definitely fall all the way until he died. In fact, during this period of time, old ancestor Dugu had been planning to possess someone's body. This was because he knew that his situation was extremely bad. Possessing someone's body was the only way. However, possessing someone's body wasn't something that could be done just by possessing someone's body. Possessing someone's body could be said to be filled with danger. If one was the slightest bit careless, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Moreover, Possessing someone's body to cultivate again was something that would damage one's virtue. If one failed, one's soul would forever fall into the yellow springs. To experience pain and torment for an eternity was truly a fate worse than death. However, in order to survive, old ancestor Dugu knew that he had to do that. Since he had decided to do this, the next step was to choose a target to possess. Since he wanted to possess someone, he naturally had to choose a young cultivator with great talent, but not a particularly strong background. Even if he possessed such a cultivator, he wouldn't have to worry about this cultivator's clansmen finding trouble with him. However, it was clear that such a person was extremely difficult to find. When old ancestor Dugu saw Lin Feng, his heart was filled with ecstasy. Lin Feng was the perfect target for possession. First of all, Lin Feng was very young, very strong, and very talented. And although Lin Feng was a member of the Forbidden Clan, he was a descendant of the banished people. So there was no need to worry about revenge. Lin Feng's top priority, right now, was to get rid of this old thing. He had no interest in fighting with this old thing. After all, this old thing was a quasi-true immortal realm cultivator. In addition, he was a cultivator who had fallen from the true immortal realm. He had many powerful methods that even quasi-true immortals could not master. Wouldn't fighting with this guy be a dead end? Lin Feng stepped on the Eight Directions world and pushed his speed to the limit. As for old ancestor Dugu, he kept on chasing after him. One fled and one chased. 3 days and 3 nights passed. Old ancestor Dugu's face was extremely gloomy. He originally thought that he could easily catch up to Lin Feng. Then he would catch Lin Feng. However, after chasing for so long, he was still unable to catch up to Lin Feng. This made old ancestor Dugu very angry. I have to think of a way to get rid of this old thing. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. He continued to travel through the mountain forest. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud sound came from afar. Lin Feng increased his speed and flew forward. He saw that a huge underground river had appeared in front of him. Chapter 44:99. Lin Feng flew above the underground river. Then he directly used the great water elemental technique and jumped into the underground river. Lin Feng condensed the power of the Water Emperor's Black Emperor. Wrapped in the power of the Water Emperor's Black Emperor, Lin Feng's speed in the water was even faster than flying in the sky. The Water Emperor was the Emperor of the Water. It represented the supreme great Tao of water of the 5 elements. The Black Emperor was the embodiment of water, which was equivalent to the embodiment of Tao. The power of the Water Emperor's Black Emperor was the purest source of the great Tao of water. Only cultivators who mastered the great water elemental technique could condense the power of the Water Emperor's Black Emperor. Lin Feng cultivated 3,000 types of great Tao. Condensing the power of the Water Emperor's Black Emperor was naturally not a difficult thing. Seeing Lin Feng enter the river below, old ancestor Dugu's face suddenly revealed a cold smile. Powerful magic power wrapped around him. He also entered the bottom of the river. Then he continued to chase Lin Feng. "Kid, you can't escape. Your fate has long been determined, and that is to be converted by me." Old ancestor Dugu's cold eyes looked at Lin Feng. Said Lin Feng, while smiling coldly. He didn't pay attention to that old bastard. He increased his speed. As time passed, old ancestor Dugu realized that something was wrong. He realized that Lin Feng's speed was getting faster and faster, and his speed was getting slower and slower. Lin Feng's power of the Water Emperor's Black Emperor made him like a fish in water. After the initial stage of adaptation, his speed naturally became faster and faster. Old ancestor Dugu was different. old ancestor Dugu was unable to condense the power of the Water Emperor's Black Emperor, and his magic power was constantly being consumed. Therefore, his speed became slower and slower as his magic power was constantly consumed. Coupled with the fact that he was moving in the water, the resistance he encountered was very high. The resistance also affected old ancestor Dugu to a certain extent. The lower he went, the greater the resistance, the greater the impact on his speed. Therefore, it was too difficult for old ancestor Dugu to catch up to Lin Feng in the water. He was gradually shaken off by Lin Feng. Lin Feng left old ancestor Dugu in the dust 2 hours later. Lin Feng continued to move through the water. An hour later, he saw a huge whirlpool in front of him. Many of the surrounding aquatic creatures, including some of the ferocious beasts in the water, could not withstand the suction of the huge whirlpool. He quickly flew toward the huge whirlpool. In the end, he was swallowed by the vortex. What the hell is that? After seeing the huge whirlpool, Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. Lin Feng could feel a terrifying aura from the inside of the huge whirlpool. That aura made Lin Feng's mind tremble slightly. Lin Feng planned to quickly leave this place. He felt that the inside of the huge whirlpool contained an extremely terrifying danger. Just as Lin Feng was about to leave, the demon lord's voice suddenly resounded in Lin Feng's mind. "Enter that whirlpool. Demon lord, you're awake." Lin Feng said in surprise. Ever since entering the Undying Realm, the demon lord had completely fallen into a state of silence. Obviously, there was an enemy of the demon lord in the Undying Realm. Lin Feng wasn't particularly familiar with the demon lord's past, but he more or less knew some things. For example, the demon lord had a great enemy in the demon realm called the Sky Prison Demon Emperor. Back then, this guy wanted to descend to the 9 states. However, Lin Feng and the demon lord worked together to destroy it. The demon lord obviously had a great enemy in the Undying Realm. Therefore, the demon lord fell into a state of silence, afraid of being discovered by his enemy. Lin Feng guessed the demon lord's enemy must be extremely terrifying. In the immemorial era, the demon lord was an expert at the level of an area lord. An area lord at that time. He must have been an expert at the level of a true immortal. Therefore, one could imagine how terrifying the demon lord's enemy was. "Now is not the time to talk to you. Hurry up and enter the vortex," the demon lord said anxiously. Lin Feng nodded and quickly rushed into the vortex. Then he was swallowed by the vortex. The powerful tearing force wanted to completely destroy Lin Feng's body. Fortunately, Lin Feng's body was strong enough. He successfully resisted the vortex's devouring. Then, he landed at the bottom of the vortex. The tearing force at the bottom of the vortex wasn't particularly strong. This made Lin Feng a little surprised. Swish! A light flashed. The demon lord appeared. "Demon lord, who is your great enemy in the Undying Realm?" Lin Feng looked at the demon lord and asked. "Many," the demon lord said indifferently. "Damn, I didn't expect you to be such a troublemaker back then," Lin Feng said. The demon lord couldn't help but roll his eyes and say, "If not for your ancestor Jizishu, how could I have offended so many people? I was implicated by Jizishu, okay?" Lin Feng. Yao Jun continued. "However, I don't blame him. Your ancestor allowed me to understand many things that I didn't know about. It also allowed my cultivation to reach a whole new level. It was only at that time that I realized how ignorant I was." Lin Feng said, "What do you mean by unknown things?" The demon lord said, "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." Lin Feng shrugged and asked, "Your enemies, can you reveal a few of them?" "Countless years have passed. I estimate that many of them have left the undying realm. The demon lord muttered. Lin Feng said, Since they have left the undying realm, what are you afraid of? The demon lord said, But the celestial emperor is still here. The celestial emperor was one of the experts who dealt with me back then. As the master of the undying realm, the celestial emperor's flesh, blood, soul, and even soul have fused with the undying realm. Thus, it is unimaginable how powerful the celestial emperor is now. The celestial emperor will definitely be able to sense my aura. If he discovers me, I will die miserably, and you will die miserably as well. The celestial emperor's killing intent towards you is much stronger than his killing intent towards me. Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes and say, But I don't even know the celestial emperor's grandson. If you say that Di Wudao's killing intent towards me is extremely strong, I agree. But how could the celestial emperor notice me? The demon lord said, You are naturally insignificant, but don't forget that half the blood in your body is the blood of the sovereign clan. The celestial emperor hates the sovereign clan. Back then, he was unable to exact revenge on the sovereign clan. But things were different now. The sovereign clan is no longer able to survive. You are a descendant of the sovereign clan. The celestial emperor can toy with you to death however he wants. Lin Feng frowned. The demon lord was clearly saying that the celestial emperor had a deep hatred towards the sovereign clan. Chapter 4500. The demon lord said, Back then, your ancestor, Ji Zishu, did many things after coming to the undying realm. Many experts were defeated by Ji Zishu. He even went to the heavenly court to take a stroll around. The heavenly court is the celestial emperor's territory. Think about it. What would happen if Ji Zishu went there? Lin Feng was speechless. The demon lord's eyes revealed a look of reminiscence. He said, Back then, Ji Zishu was very young, very powerful, and very confident. He liked to challenge the strong. Back then, he punched through the undying realm's realm crystal wall. Perhaps this matter had already sealed the grudge between him and the undying realm, as well as the celestial emperor. However, the celestial emperor was defeated by Ji Zishu. The celestial emperor knew how to endure. After losing to Ji Zishu, he didn't say anything. He seemed to have accepted his defeat wholeheartedly. However, the seed of hatred had already been planted in his heart. Lin Feng said, Victory and defeat are commonplace, right? Just because he lost, he bore a grudge against the sovereign's clan. As the sovereign of the undying realm, how could the celestial emperor be so narrow-minded? The demon lord said, Do you think that great figures have to be magnanimous? Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly at the demon lord's question. The demon lord continued, The celestial emperor is a very vicious person. He's a hypocrite. You should know that hypocrites are even scarier than villains. The celestial emperor's cultivation is very strong, and he has many friends. Thus, even the celestial realm wouldn't easily provoke him. Actually, everyone is the same. They would rather offend villains than hypocrites. Later, something happened to your ancestor, Ji Zishu. At this point, Yao Jun paused for a moment. Lin Feng knew that something had happened to Ji Zishu. He had entered the world of the mastermind in an attempt to kill him. However, he had failed at the last moment. The demon lord sighed and continued, There is one thing that can be confirmed. The heavenly emperor is connected to the mastermind. Lin Feng frowned and said, In that case, Di Wudao and the celestial emperor are really jackals of the same lair. Back then, Di Wudao colluded with the people of that world to harm my father. If we're not family, we won't enter the same house. The demon lord nodded and said, The father and son are indeed the same kind of trash. It seems that making Di Wudao, the crown, prince wasn't without reason. Back then, when the Sky Emperor found out about Jishu's accident, he joined forces with others to kill me and Draco Elephant Supreme. However, at this time, we still don't know about this matter. Supreme Draconic Elephant has separated from me due to some matters. Later on, I was besieged by the Celestial Emperor and the others. The Demon Lord didn't say anything else. It seemed like the fall of the Demon Lord had something to do with that battle. There's a sealed archaic Draco Elephant in the Demonic Pearl. My archaic Draco Elephant art was imparted to me by him. Who is that existence? Lin Feng asked. It's the manifestation of Draco Elephant Supreme's evil intent, sealed in the Demonic Pearl, the Demon Lord said. In the past, Lin Feng had asked the Demon Lord this question, but the Demon Lord didn't answer Lin Feng. He didn't know if it was because Lin Feng's cultivation had increased or not. Therefore, the Demon Lord wasn't willing to tell Lin Feng some things. Now, it was time to tell Lin Feng. How did Draco Elephant Supreme's evil intent get sealed in the Demonic Pearl? Lin Feng asked curiously. Draco Elephant Supreme isn't simple. He's very talented, and his comprehension ability is also very strong. He created a special cultivation technique and used it to forcefully separate his evil intent from his good intent. Once the evil intent leaves the body, it can easily turn into a Yin soul. That's why Draco Elephant Supreme begged me to seal his evil intent in the Demonic Pearl. The Demon Lord said, Draco Elephant Supreme should have fallen, right? Lin Feng asked. The Demon Lord said, I'm not sure, but Draco Elephant Supreme's evil intent is growing stronger by the day. If he had fallen, his evil intent should have been devoured by the Demonic Pearl. However, his evil intent is growing stronger. I suspect that Draco Elephant Supreme hasn't fallen. What? He hasn't fallen? Lin Feng couldn't help but widen his eyes. If Draco Elephant Supreme hadn't fallen, it would be great news for Lin Feng. Draco Elephant Supreme was his ancestor's disciple. He could become his backer in the future, just like the barbarians and Senior Duguya. Can you find out any information about Draco Elephant Supreme? Lin Feng couldn't help but ask. The Demon Lord said, No, let's wait and see what happens next. Lin Feng could only nod. Let's go and take a look, the Demon Lord said. He took the lead and walked into the depths. Lin Feng asked, What is this place? The demonic netherworld, the Demon Lord said. When Lin Feng heard that name, his hair stood on end. Even though he didn't know what the demonic netherworld, was, Lin Feng was terrified. Lin Feng asked, What's the demonic netherworld? Is it related to the netherworld? Yao Jun nodded and said, It is indeed related to the nether dimension. It's extremely ancient and terrifying. It roams the 3 dimensions and might appear at any place. However, the places it likes to appear the most are places with more corpses. For example, ancient battlefields. I never expected that I would actually encounter the nether devil I hear today. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. It seemed that there were still too many things in the 3 realms that were full of mysteries and unknowns to him. Lin Feng followed behind the Demon Lord. After a short time, they arrived in the depths. Lin Feng saw a gigantic pitch-black hole. A pair of eyes floated in the black hole. It was a pair of black eyes, demonic, cold, and terrifying. The eyes didn't seem to have awakened. The Demon Lord and Lin Feng stopped. Demonic netherworld, we meet again. The Demon Lord said. Swish. Hearing the Demon Lord's voice, the demonic netherworld opened. It was a pair of incomparably terrifying eyes. Those eyes seemed to be able to see through the truest world in one's heart. Those eyes made one's heart palpitate. No one wanted to look into those eyes. That was the demonic netherworld. It's you? A voice was heard. It was the demonic netherworld eye's voice. Obviously, it remembered who the demon lord was. You actually brought a young human cultivator with you. Is this a gift for me? The demonic netherworld eye continued. As soon as it finished speaking, Lin Feng felt his body turn cold, as if he had fallen into hell. Do you dare to eat a descendant of the Sovereign Emperor clan? Chapter 45:01. The demonic netherworld, I said. You really are a descendant of the Sovereign Emperor clan. It hadn't been observing Lin Feng earlier. Now, it was observing carefully. It had indeed sensed the Sovereign Emperor bloodline in Lin Feng's body. The demonic netherworld, I continued. So what if he's from the Sovereign Emperor clan? So what if he's eaten by Amir Jr.? Things are different now. In the past, the Sovereign Emperor clan was a clan that no one dared to provoke. Now, everyone wants to trample on the Sovereign Emperor clan. Do you think you're going against your will? The demon lord asked. The demonic netherworld, I sneered. I'm not going against my will. However, the demonic netherworld, I clearly lacked confidence in its words. Lin Feng couldn't help but let out a long breath. It seemed that the demonic netherworld, I was just bragging in front of the demon lord when it said it would eat him. Moreover, Lin Feng had a feeling that the demon lord and the demonic netherworld, I seemed to have some relationship. The demon lord said, I need something. I know you have it. What do you need? The demonic netherworld, I asked. The golden body law bone. The demon lord said. The demonic netherworld, I said. The past and the present should no longer be involved. If you want to transcend, you should move forward. If you continue to be involved in the past, all your years of cultivation will be for naught. The demon lord said, one can't do as one pleases in the martial world. How can I think so much now? The demonic netherworld, I said, what you said makes sense. Living in the present is the most important thing. The demon lord said, that's right. I no longer seek to transcend. In the future, I should take one step at a time. Perhaps there will be some unexpected surprises. The demonic netherworld, I said. I hope so. In the next instant, something flew out of the black hole. The thing was enveloped in golden light, making it impossible to see what it was. However, when it flew out, the golden light gradually dissipated. That thing also revealed its form. That thing turned out to be a skeleton. This greatly surprised Lin Feng. The golden skeleton was densely covered with runes. It seemed that the golden skeleton had an unimaginable origin. After seeing the golden skeleton, the demon lord's eyes revealed a complicated expression. However, the demon lord was standing in front of Lin Feng. Therefore, Lin Feng did not see the change in the demon lord's gaze. Whose skeleton is this? Lin Feng asked curiously. The demonic eye of the netherworld asked, what? You want to know? Lin Feng nodded. Of course. The remains of Emperor Shun. The demonic netherworld, I said. After hearing the netherworld magic eye's words, Lin Feng's eyes widened. His face was filled with disbelief. Emperor Shun, one of the 5 kings. He was the ancestor of the human race. Lin Feng had heard of the legends of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors since he was young. But now, Lin Feng had actually seen Emperor Shun's skeleton. Lin Feng had been looking for Emperor Shun's descendants in the Xin domain. He had not found any of them. Instead, he had found Emperor Shun's skeleton. I owe you a favor, the demon lord said. Then I will remember this favor. I will repay it in the future, the demonic eye of the netherworld said. Of course, I always keep my word, the demon lord said. Then, the demon lord looked at Emperor Shun's skeleton. He grabbed it. Then he entered the demonic orb again. Then there was silence again. Why does the demon Lord want Emperor Shun's skeleton? Lin Feng could not help but ask. The demonic eye of the netherworld said, "You should ask the demon lord himself, not me." Lin Feng curled his lips and asked, "Since you are the demonic eye of the netherworld, why don't you stay in the underworld?" The demonic eye of the netherworld said, "I really want to eat people right now." Hearing this, Lin Feng smiled awkwardly and said, "This junior still has matters to attend to, so I will take my leave first." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng quickly flew into the distance. He did not dare to stay here any longer. If he was eaten by the demonic eye of the netherworld, he would be in trouble. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng disappeared without a trace. There are still descendants of the sovereign emperor clan. Very good, the demonic eye of the netherworld muttered to itself. Lin Feng quickly left the underground river. After leaving the underground river, Lin Feng continued to fly deeper into the underworld. Lin Feng wanted to meet up with the Snow Maiden in the depths. Then they would go to the Snow Spirit Bonfire together. Not long after, Lin Feng saw a dozen cultivators flying over. This surprised Lin Feng. Under normal circumstances, no one would come to this place. Earlier, Lin Feng had seen a group of people from the Dugu clan. Now, there were cultivators from other forces. This made Lin Feng very confused. Why were there so many cultivators? Lin Feng did not appear. He continued to fly deeper into the underworld. Not long after, Lin Feng saw another group of cultivators. There were more than 30 of them. This was the third group of cultivators that Lin Feng had seen. In the following period of time, Lin Feng saw more than 10 groups of cultivators. Each group of cultivators was overseen by an expert. This surprised Lin Feng. These people must have received some kind of news to come here. Otherwise, they would not have come to the extreme north in such a large group. Moreover, they had come to this underground world. Not long after, Lin Feng even saw a few experts from the 8 Extreme Palace and the Sacred Army. Lin Feng avoided those people and continued to fly deeper into the underworld. About 3 days later, Lin Feng saw another group of people. He saw Zi Yuan from afar. When he saw Zi Yuan, Lin Feng was very excited. But soon, Lin Feng's face became gloomy again. Obviously, the current Zi Yuan was not the real Zi Yuan. Zi Yuan was the reincarnation of Venerable Yuan's sister. Venerable Yuan's sister's soul seed had awakened and wanted to devour Zi Yuan's soul. There are 2 situations in reincarnation. The first is that the soul enters the mind of the fetus and turns into a soul seed. The soul seed awakens and then devours the soul of the reincarnated body. This is equivalent to being reborn. Zi Yuan is in this situation. The second situation is that only a part of the memory is preserved and enters the mind of the fetus. As one's cultivation increases, this part of the memory will gradually recover and become the memory of the reincarnated body. This situation is equivalent to the reincarnated body remembering some things from their previous life. For example, the Red World Fairy was in this situation. Lin Feng wanted to save Zi Yuan, but he did not have the ability to do so. Therefore, he saw Zi Yuan again. Lin Feng knew that Zi Yuan was definitely still Venerable Yuan's sister. Maybe I can join forces with the Snow Lady to suppress Zi Yuan's body, which is already controlled by Venerable Yuan's sister, and destroy her soul. This way, Zi Yuan will be saved,